Ron Steffen.
Here.
Ron Dahl.
Here.
Dale Peterson.
Here.
John Wakefield.
Here.
Troy's here. All present. Next I have the agenda. Have you all had a chance to review the agenda? I know the preliminary one, or the one we got last night, still had Randy Fugelberg on it, and I asked her to take it off because that issue was resolved by the water board, I think. So that change was made today.
Are we waiting for the auditor?
Well, we should if we're not recording and she's not here. I don't know.
Well, I think we're recording.
Oh, are we? Okay.
Did you get it going?
Yeah, I think so.
Samantha said Cindy wasn't gonna be here right away. She'll be here, but.
Okay. I think we got a recording now, Cindy.
Is it recording? Brought some more
I
batteries.
turned it off and turned it back on, and it looks like it's recording, but it might not like it.
She's got the other recording come up.
Okay, dual recordings. Seems to be a 17-minute gap in this tape.
Well, I know nothing.
Your president is not a clerk.
Anything else you see that should be added to the agenda or any changes?
I'd move to approve the agenda as presented.
Sean has moved to approve the agenda as presented. Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Seconded by Dale. Is there any discussion? Is there any discussion? Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We'll move on now to the minutes from July 18th and July 28th. I think we'll take them one at a time, but I think we've had these for a while, right? Any additions or corrections to the July 28th Commissioners' minutes?
18th to 28th.
Oh, I put one too many times, I'm sorry. 18th.
Yeah, nothing different.
I'd move to accept the July 18th minutes and dispense with the reading.
Been moved by Sean to accept the July 18th meeting minutes as presented and dispense with the reading. Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second.
Second to motion. Is there any discussion? Is there any discussion? Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Now we'll move on to this short one-page, half-page minutes. From July 28th. Does anybody have any additions or corrections to those minutes?
I'd move to accept the July 28th minutes and dispense with the reading.
Been moved by Sean to accept the minutes from the July 28th meeting and dispense with the reading of the minutes. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Seconded by Dale. Is there any discussion? Is there any discussion? Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Move on to page 7. Monthly office reports. Any questions on the monthly the monthly office reports?
I'd move to accept the monthly office reports.
Sean's made a motion to accept the office reports as presented. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Ron. Is there any discussion? Is there any discussion? Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Next is the bills on page 13 and 14. As always, we have the original invoices here if anybody has any questions.
Is there a question on the Bank of the West one? Is that for 2 months or 3,400?
Yes, plus interest.
So
There was 100 and something interest.
June and July or July and August?
It was July and August. Because we have to pay before, they have to get it in the first week of the month. And we were meeting today, and it takes, I don't know how long, check goes to California, I think, so We paid both July and August and made up vouchers. They don't send us bill. I requested bills. They won't send us bills, so we just copied from one month to the next. So when you meet at your next meeting on the 15th, you will pay for September.
And that comes out of the emergency fund? And I think you said, well, Tunda's bill, that's for 2 years, right? That's $7,500.
He said it's 3 years.
3
And he
years.
said he would be here, so he charged $1,900 for 2011, $1,900 for 2012, and $3,700, I think, for 2013.
Okay.
I think I seen him come up, or come
Is he-
into the building.
Okay, good.
Any other questions?
Is this when we talk about the budgets here?
No. This is just, this.
No, I mean, no, this year's budget. I mean, it has to do with the bills.
Yeah, Doug, if they're over line item.
Yeah.
If you're doing line item, that's your other question too. Are you doing total budget or line item, or what are you doing?
Well, I mean, there's some serious concerns here that we need to talk about in this, in this piece of paper right here. They need to be addressed, so I don't know when that needs to be done, but I assume that we were talking about the monthly bills, that this is it, time.
Good afternoon, Harold. Good afternoon. I would almost, if there are issues within the budgets, it almost seems like we should meet with the individual staff member concerning that deals with. I mean,
Well, no, these are payments that have been made over budget, so this is something that should have been before us so that we could approve, or so we knew what we were approving. There's some of these that if we're over budget now are going to be a major concern here going down the road.
Some of them I told Troy need corrections to them. Like ours, I don't know why there's 32 out of the equipment when there's nothing in the budget, so that's gotta get changed.
Which one is that?
First page.
Well, it's the
Or
second page.
First page in.
Second, you turn it, it's the second page. Because they aren't page numbered. And there's a $32 one for me in my office, and I have to go check that one, just like the state's attorney. I'm not sure what that is, and he would have to talk to you about that for his dues. Tax director, she would have to tell you what that was about, or I'd have to go back and look on what that was about for her. Election, usually we direct that one at the end of the year if there's monies left in other funds. But I know I came up to you with the computer, I know that was $800 and some. Publishing and printing, you know, is over.
Right, well, that's a concern, because that's an ongoing cost, and we're already $2,000 over on that. That has to be addressed somehow.
And part of that is because you have an increase of meetings too. You gotta remember, you're meeting twice as many times as they did before. You are.
Not the case. They were averaging a meeting a week for about the last 10 months of because they were having special meetings over and over and over and over again. So that's not true. The special meetings far outnumbered the increase to our.
but it might not.
Part of that is
So
advertising
length
for
of the minutes
Length
too.
of the,
Yeah.
it's a column inches that,
No,
they charge, and they went up, I think, in their price too.
what are they?
I think
they
they did.
yeah.
So that's part of that too.
The sheriff's department, we're gonna talk about that one.
Then there's the miscellaneous in and out, that's up to you because that's money that comes in and it's supposed to be matching going out. If you okay the bills, but it's stuff that goes in and out and I'd have to look to see what was spent that put it that far over. I don't know if it was a vehicle or something else, I don't know. I'd have to go and look at the printout for the account history and find out. I didn't have a chance to do it because I was asked at the last minute to do it. We just closed books yesterday, finished closing books yesterday. So, FAR has some stuff in theirs and Wayne would have to address that with you. And part of that is because of the road projects and he's got a couple in road. There is the loan one, because there is nothing budgeted, and when you have refunds, it's $6.45. There's one in wireless that might be just a mistake, came out of the wrong account number. Flood 2011 was never budgeted. Emergency,
What does that mean? It was never, what's gonna happen with flood 2 in 2011 then?
that you're gonna have to talk to the sheriff about. He handles that stuff.
No, but the concern is why,
You can't keep that money even though it wasn't budgeted.
But it was
That's
spent.
township's money, yeah,
Oh, okay.
it's township's money.
What, that 2011
Flood,
flood was
yeah.
last?
That was your money that went out, wasn't it?
Well, it come out of the 2011 flood fund, which, well, actually, the Washburn Township, that was a large project, so we didn't get the money into our flood account.
And Washburn came out there too, that was at the last meeting.
That was the last one. So, in order for Washburn to get reimbursed for that, then I had to send the paperwork into Bismarck, and then they looked over the paperwork, and then they reimbursed the county, because we are the applicant for the money, and then it's paid out to Washburn Township with invoices that they had from Gilbertson and whoever else was on.
So the reimbursement came into the general fund and check.
Reimbursement come into the 2011 flood fund, I believe, and that's written out of the 2011 flood fund. Should say on,
Can't, or it would have balanced.
well, it should have been paid out of the. I don't know if the flood fund, I've never seen that. I don't know if the flood fund shows up on that as an item, because there probably is still money in the 2009 flood, I think also.
And the emergency, I'll have to check into that one. It might be that I just didn't put, I think that was the payment on the, and I just wanted to keep track of it, so I think that is just a line item that can be put, the amount can be switched from one line to the other.
But going back, I mean, did we resolve flood 2011? Are you guys satisfied with the process is?
I don't think you can hold the money.
Well,
I
I'm not
mean-
holding
Oh, I know, but why is it over budget?
Because it was never budgeted.
That's not good, is it?
okay then,
So we should-
that begs the question, why was it spent? We can't be spending money over budget if.
It wasn't spent, it was reimbursed to the township that had to pay the bill. That's the way it is, that's the way it's always.
That's not the way it is. That is not the way it is, and it's not gonna be that way anymore.
We never got the money until we
It
got.
doesn't matter, Wayne, there's a procedure for doing this, and just because it was done that way in the past doesn't mean it's gonna be done this way in the future.
Well, we didn't get the money until 2 weeks ago, and we paid them out the last.
It should have, the anticipation of the money should have been included in the budget.
The anticipation was the project was supposed to be $107,000. That's the money that they had in Bismarck to pay that, but then when it come in at a lot less, 60-some thousand, see, we don't get that money, so I don't understand.
The only way to have checks and balances in this system is to follow the correct accounting principles so that if there's going to be a check written and it is greater than the budgeted amount, it will be highlighted. That's the only way to have a checks and balance, and the only way to assure that comes out correctly is to put the information in correctly. And I'm really getting sick of the answer that that's the way it's always been done before. That's gotta come to a stop. That's not justification for any of this.
Again, I say, I don't know how you can budget when you don't know the amount of money that you're gonna get. We could have budgeted for $107,000, but when the project came in at $40,000 less.
And then they balance. You budget for $140,000.
Now is the time that it should have been balanced, when it came in at so much and you paid it out.
No,
Zeroed out.
you budget it at 140 on the revenue side. It comes in at 60, you only get the 60, it balances. It can't balance if you don't put the overhead in the revenue side. It has to, there's two sides to a balance sheet. You have to make sure you anticipate. If you go over, that doesn't mean that doesn't increase the budget. If you put 140,000 in revenue here and you spend $60,000, it didn't do anything detrimental to the budget. It just showed, now it would show a positive balance in that account,
Okay, but
which if the actual money came in, then would be used towards next year's budget.
It didn't come in, so.
Then if it didn't come in, then it would only be spent, the amount that came in can only be spent. You can't overspend what came in. So
That's what should have happened.
Okay, so we agree that it hasn't been done correctly.
I guess I haven't seen it, but yeah, it should have. If we got 64,000 or whatever it was in, then the out should have been the same, because it was 100% reimbursement.
What do other counties do?
But there should be a budget to reflect that,
Right.
and not just an empty budget, you know.
This was a 2011 flood.
Yeah, but then
No,
the
we
balance
didn't get the
remaining
stuff.
would carry forward. See, then it would be funds carried forward into this year's budget. It would still reflect that.
Well, that's the way it is when we have a disaster and we get paid 90% of the money. The 90% comes to the 2011 flood or the 2009 flood. And then when the township turns in their bills, they get paid for the 90%. You know, and that should balance out so that at the end of the time when all the spots are repaired, you know, other than there's administration fee that comes with most PWs, but not with this one because it was a large project, I guess. It's supposed to be turned in as they did the work. You turn in, get reimbursed, turn in, get reimbursed. Well, they completed the project now, and then I sent in all the paperwork. So the money that came in, whatever it was, 100,000, should have gone out 100,000. But then there still might be some flood money in there from some other projects that there's Barclay Township hasn't completed this.
And then that should have carried through into the following
should
year's
be a-
budget. It should carry through into the following year's budget then.
I don't know. I don't do the flood budgets.
Harold, can you help us? How do other counties typically?
What do other counties do, and what John's saying, I totally agree with, I'm a budget officer. When counties say, one way or another, it's not our money, it's restricted, they don't budget for it. But what John is saying could be done, and it still could be done, because if you look at the cash balance in that fund, you in theory would budget 100% of what each township had come that year. Then you put in a budget to 107,000 like you talked about for this project. Now, if nothing ever happened because the township were late or didn't get to it, then in theory you have no expenses. And then the amount would be carried over the following year. But to formalize what you're talking about, you could very easily do that by saying, telling its PWs are open, we'll budget each year when it starts out saying we're gonna do, hopefully get done. But most other counties will say we don't want to talk about it because if we don't get it, if they don't get it, FEMA gets it back. So therefore, why budget for it? That's their philosophy. I'm not going to agree with it, but I'm saying that's what other counties do. So they budget funds that they have a direct say in. You know, they don't have a direct say. Other counties say, why bother? I agree with it, but that's what they do.
But why bother? Because then when the project does have to be completed, then we end up in a situation
I don't
where we're
agree with
budgeted.
you. No, I agree with what you're
Yeah.
saying. But I'm saying is that's where what most people say is, well, it's the township's problem because it's the township's money that they either get or don't get. And from your perspective, you say, you know what? If that road was done out It should be fixed, and we should be able to monitor that. And the way you monitor it is, how come we've got 3 township roads with no expenses this year? And you say, well, I haven't done the work yet. Then you say, you know what, let's call them up and say, why aren't you doing the work? But you're right, from a control perspective of knowing what's going on, what's left to go on. If somebody said, why haven't they fixed that road yet? One road, really? Wasn't that from the 11 flood? Yeah, 11 flood.
Well,
They haven't done. That's
But the
it.
thing is, the project was done. It just hadn't been reimbursed yet.
Right, but I'm saying, but each year, so when you start it, you'd have, because right now, when Wayne talks about it, he can say, okay, these are the PWs that we have from 2011, been extended.
I know.
In theory, you budget for those, and say, okay, here's, but and then the large project, you budget for also with the 107 that you're, the
But
max.
townships don't have the money to pay for that 107,000, which turned out to be 60,000. So really, it came out of the county.
No, actually, both sides, right, because 160 came in and 60 going out, right? Because you don't pay them unless you get the money, correct?
Right.
So that budget, if you budget for it, it'd be 107 revenue, like you're talking about, 107 expense, and it'd be 60 and 60. And you'd have a 40,000 surplus on both sides, and you still even, but you would see it coming through. And as a commission, you can say what hasn't or hasn't been spent in that fund. Now if it goes up to 150, you go, now we got a problem because they're stopping at 140. Now as a commission, you say, that township's gonna come and beg us for mercy. Because we don't have the money to pay for that extra overrun. Can you help us? And you're like, we budgeted 140 that FEMA budgeted. We don't have any money. You guys have to come up with it. But that's a process. And again, as if you become using the budget as a tool, that's a great tool. Because then it's always there. Each month you look at those variances and go, how are we sitting? Wayne, have they started yet? How's it looking? Is it looking good? Looking bad? Are we in trouble? Nope. Good. Then it's township's issue.
Well, it begs the other question is when we have 2009 flood and there's a balance in it, and 2004 flood and there's a balance, why are those balances there? Unless, I know I'm just using that as go back. So we don't know why those balances are there, and then all of a sudden we end up in a position which has happened, not during my time as a county commissioner, where we have money in that account, and we just decide to get rid of it. We just pay it out to somebody.
Right, or buy something.
Well, no, it's been paid out to
It
people.
gets spent out, you're right.
And because, whoa, what's that money doing there? Well, I don't know what it's doing there. Let's give it to somebody.
If
That
there
can't
is money
happen.
left over, you can request to purchase equipment with the money, but all the PWs have to pay it out.
It should be carried forward to offset the burden of the taxpayer for the following year.
there's certain rules you have to follow, and the only way you can keep the money is to buy.
You can't spend the money unless you request it.
Then it should be
If there is
carried
money,
over
there
into
isn't.
the fall, into the
Okay.
next year, and to offset the burden to the taxpayer, or to be spent in the next year or carried over to the following year. This isn't an accounting system. This is an accounting system is verifiable from balancing one side to the other side. This is a spreadsheet, is all we have here. When we go through and we wonder why this money was spent or where it was spent, and we can't decipher what happened, that's not an accounting system. And I can't be expected to do my job to monitor the finances of the county if I can't even get correct information to do that.
Emergency, like I said, is a line item. There's a document preservation, I think you guys okayed that one with Kelly.
Well, I'm still not, I mean, don't we need to come to a resolution of how we're gonna change things, or are we just gonna,
If you want to amend the 2011 budget, you add it.
well, or at least in the next budget, we're not
But
gonna let
we're
this happen
doing
anymore?
bills and not amending budgets right
Okay.
now.
But I'd say that'd be a resolution round.
Okay, no, I mean, if we're satisfied, it's a done deal issue, I guess.
Done well. Ron's right, we have to come to a resolution on this, otherwise we're gonna keep committing these same mistakes over and over and over again. If we don't know why we did this one, we're gonna do it again.
The other thing here that I addressed to them is I brought up about they have to decide if they want to do line item or if they want to do total budget for amending.
But I mean, I think if you really wanted to run the fall in 2011 is to go through all the PWs that are open and bring it to the next meeting and see that, to compare that to the balance that's outstanding. that townships could claim to give you an idea where they're at.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the best solution is, but we need a solution, I think.
Again, I don't think it's correcting what has been done prior. I think it's correcting the procedures that allowed that to be done. If we're asked to okay a bill, we need to be able to know that there's money within that budget to pay that bill. We're taking it for granted that there is money when in essence we have to be able to know that there is money there. And we've okayed bills, things to be paid here without actually having the correct paperwork to verify that. And that can't happen anymore.
This shows that there was no money.
This shows that there wasn't. So if we're able to decipher now that there was no money when we okayed that bill, why did we okay that bill and why wasn't that brought to our attention? Can't correct the mistakes of the past, but we can learn from them so we don't make them again in the future.
So how do you want to handle it? Because right here, okay, if you go to your assets and liability under flood 2011, there's still a 39,000 carryover, and flood 2009's got 28 or 23,000 carryover. I mean, do you want to amend the whole budget, or you just want to amend it?
No.
It shows that money coming in, going out for the 2011 flood.
We don't want to amend it. I would like to know that if I'm presented with a bill, that there's money in that budget to pay that bill. So just as I think is supposed to be done, if we're over budget, we're supposed to know about it before we okay that bill. And I think that was made a point of that was made last year when we had to okay a case of water. That was trying to impress upon us the power of the auditor. I think once that you've stated that power, now you need to follow through and make us aware of everything that's over, not just what's over to make a point to us. And this isn't right. We have the ability to stop this, and we got to stop this.
Well, each one of these should be a budgeted
Yes.
category.
Is it recording?
So is it possible that from now on you could inform us if there's something that's over before we're asked to okay the payment on it?
Here's a
Can't
question.
you just make it each department's?
Well, that's a question after you, John. It's three levels, especially in the general fund. You have line item, you have department, and you have the total fund. So for example, if Cindy goes over budget and Connie goes under budget, that total budget is still under budget. And people say, we're good with that. Other people say is, Cindy's responsible for her budget, she goes over, she's gotta talk about it, and she can't go, I use some of Connie's money. That's departmental. Third item is okay, if you've got supplies, and your salary's under budget because you have an opening for a couple months that you didn't fill, so now I got money for, I'm gonna buy supplies with that salary. Then you say, no, you can't, because supplies budget's over budget, even though in total that department's under. But I mean, you need to, for your reference, John, which I understand, is you have to decide which level you want Cindy to report back. And all three are right. They're all, I mean, I've seen all three used.
Well, her prior criteria for that was line item.
Then it should be line item.
Yeah.
If you're gonna say, did you use other money for it? Then it's department. And did somebody else come under? Then it's fund. But if it's line item, then every line item. And that, Barnes County Commission did that many years ago. They were amending budgets every month. Say, if Cindy come in and say, I'm going over budget my supplies, will you amend it? Yes, we will. Then that goes with it. And they stopped doing that the last couple of years. But they were doing that in every meeting. A good chunk was budget amendments, up and down. And there was nothing wrong with that. But that's something they did. Most other counties are just saying, we're not gonna worry about it, and we'll amend it in January, so everybody's good. And to me, that has the least effect on us, because that doesn't have any control, because everything's already spent. And you're saying is, we'll give a blanket approval of whatever's been spent. So,
If you just let the chips fall and then amend the budgets after the fact, why even bother going through the process?
that's right.
That just ludicrous in my head.
You gotta remember, there's only 2 people in our office, and to get, like I said, we closed books yesterday. Get all this ready and up to you.
But you could print a line item report or a department report.
You get that every month.
Okay, that's what I mean.
That's that
It
report
wouldn't be
that
any-
you get every
It won't be
month.
any extra work for us to do that.
That part, no, but going line item to line item and highlighting them and comparing them to this is.
But you must enter the amount so that it comes out of the budget. When you enter it, don't you see that by entering that amount, it takes it over budget?
I think it goes in-
There is nothing in the program that tells you that.
Not those
You
days.
have to go through each individual bill and compare it to each line item in here.
I think until it's paid, it doesn't go through the system down to show that.
Yeah, but
So-
she's already got,
But isn't that last month?
she's already got this from this month.
Is that showing?
I just did that over lunch hour.
Listen to me.
Okay.
Okay.
You've already got this from this month. When she comes to pay bills next month,
Right.
she can say, okay, I've got a bill that needs to come out of district court. Whoops, that one is over budget.
But I won't know they're over budget until next month. You just answered the question.
Cindy, if you start this process every month, if you look at this and as you pay a bill, you say, well, I've got one from the clerk of court and it's within $2 of being over budget, and now if I write this, it's going to be over budget. That will be your checks and balance.
That's the,
Use this for the following month and check the balance against the check you're going to write, and you have it.
Not against the check she's gonna write, the one she's gonna present for payment.
Yeah. Yeah.
the new bill list, does it have the account number on it, or do you do it after it's all done?
I'm sorry.
Do you have the account number on the bill list?
On the bill.
So like a
It's
new
just
bill-
on a voucher. You'd have to collect each one and figure out which one's from which department, which office, and then go through and check them all.
Gee, okay. And then actually you write the checks after the meeting, right?
Right, we
And
write
enter
the checks,
system to write after.
and then you can print out and see if they're over.
Yeah. So it'd be a manual system, John, to actually go through the bill list to see if there's any of each of those line items. Which you'd have to do.
It should
I'm
be,
saying.
it should be a quick fix on government software too, it seems like. Just when you enter that data, it tells you your over budget. I mean, it's not that complicated.
We can ask him
Computer.
if he can do it.
Well, it sounds like a simple programming thing, but to me, anyway.
I don't know.
Yeah, there's sometimes when, if you're entering through the billing system to be approved, there's some that they will summarize by account. Sometimes, some will do it. I don't know if government's office does it, but that's what we have to check on.
But it is summarized by the account. I'm holding it in
Well,
my
that's
hand.
the
I'm
actual
holding it in
stuff.
my hand.
Right, that's the actuals.
And I just did that, like I said, over my lunch hour to highlight that and give you that report.
But it doesn't include the bills you're gonna pay today, right?
It does not include any of these.
So you could be even further over budget on some of those line items, John.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I understand that.
Yeah. If you're right.
I know why it's happening. I just want it not to happen anymore. As Troy just said, what's the use of having a budget?
Now, those vouchers, do you enter those, are they in the computer already?
Yes. But they aren't entered to get to this report till after you've paid them.
And that software is not intuitive enough
Right.
to say, hello,
Yeah,
you have a
no.
memo post and it's gonna put you over.
Yeah,
That's what Ron was talking.
yeah, it seems like that wouldn't be that hard.
We'd have to ask Harold, or Kelly if that could be
You have
done.
to ask him to see what kind of reports you're gonna run. If you can run a preliminary, if we approve these bills, where we at.
Right. I mean, we do that every day at the bank.
That's right, yeah. And
If somebody's gonna be overdrawn if we process a check, then we decide if we wanna let it happen or not.
that's right.
I mean,
That's the same kind of concept you talked about here, guys, saying if we approve this bill, we basically bouncing our budget.
right.
Most softwares aren't geared for it because most people don't ask that question.
Well,
What you talk about, which I agree you should have, most people go, whatever. And the fact that you're doing that and talking about it, I think is great. I think it's great myself, personally. But everybody else, the software people are like, really? You guys want that? Nobody else asked you for that. That's I about guarantee that's the answer Cindy's gonna get. Now, it doesn't mean you can't do it, but it's not there. Or you should do it, that's the same.
So there's nothing on the screen when you enter, like this check for $568. When you go to enter that check into the district court travel line item, it doesn't show the balance in there?
The current balance.
What comes up on the screen?
You want me to go print the screen?
No,
off?
I was just asking. What?
What comes up is you put in your vendor number, which is who you're writing the check to. You put in a invoice number, then you put in the amount, the dates you're going to pay it. I think you know what else is next. Whether it's a void, unpaid, paid. And I think that's it on the top part. And then the bottom, you go in and you put in the account number. It's going to get paid, and then a description, then the amount, and that's it.
And the only thing that really comes up is just the name that vendor
Account's
was
coming
in
out of.
and the account.
Okay, so if this was printed prior then to entering payments for the following month, and you had this in front of you with the balance as of the last bills that were paid, it would be very easily then to cross-check against the balance, against the check that was going to be written, to determine whether or not you're within the budget.
It still would take that time because we don't get a lot of bills until the last minute, and how you're going to check them all. I mean,
But why don't we get the bills?
they aren't doing. I mean, you would have to end up, like my health insurance wasn't up today, so I couldn't include that one. So I'm going to have to pay that one after the meeting. And people hand in their bills, and sometimes they get them when they get them, and you're meeting August 1st, so guess what? There's going to be a lot of bills probably for the 15th that we haven't gotten yet if people bought things.
Hmm?
We get what we get, and then we put them in. I asked for them the lunch before, but like I said, we closed books. We stayed 7 o'clock on, what day was it? Wednesday, to start closing books. I finished closing books yesterday at lunchtime. Okay.
So
And then I have to run all the reports, get them out. We have to put in all these into the computer, into the Excel, put the book together, the agenda.
So it's a timing issue.
It's a timing issue.
So we just need to back the date that the bills are due up in order to allow you time to get it all prepared. So that's nothing more than a schedule.
But you're gonna remember, that's gonna take like a half a day to do that.
Well, that's nothing more than a scheduling issue. So all bills are due in your office 5 days before the meeting, and any bill that isn't included goes to the next meeting. It's pretty simple.
Our tax ones aren't done until we close books. So you're gonna hold the tax money, which you're dated for the 8th on all of them, most of them anyway, to pay them out. You can't do that.
They have to be paid by the 10th of the month. Schools, townships, cities, garrison, any taxing district.
But those aren't part of the budget process, so maybe they wouldn't count anyway. I don't know.
That is not pertinent to this discussion, one bit.
It's only pertinent if you're trying to throw roadblocks that make no sense. This is a very easy accounting problem to fix. Let's just fix it.
There's not a summary tab in that software.
But the point John made is what most, government entities, they'll set a cutoff date, and they'll say anything after that date, it's too bad. I tell you, the first time the guy misses the cutoff, I'll guarantee you the second time, he doesn't miss that cutoff. But if he knows he can submit a bill this morning, he can submit a bill this morning. So I mean, that's the issue, but what you're gonna do is you'll get a few calls going, come on, you gotta pay me. Hey, sure got the bill on last Thursday, or the Thursday before commission, or Wednesday before commission, or whatever day. If you wanna set that, you can set that, and then you can get your reports. But then you gotta hold it.
The last thing I'll say on this, the fact that you can present me with a report now that says that we're over budget, it tells me that we can have that information at any time. This is a timing issue, is how we pay the bills, and we need to fix it. Either that, or are we gonna have to ask you on every bill, is that within budget? Is that within budget? Is that within the budget? Are we gonna have to tear down the payroll and go line by line?
Yeah, just, Troy, I'd like to see Cindy ask Kelly the question, how much will it cost to revise the software to do the things we're talking about here?
Well, and it might be something that's in there.
It could be,
You know, I don't know that.
yeah, but it'd be a good, I think Cindy should ask him that question. Say that's a desired feature, either you're not sure how to do it, or it doesn't appear to be there. And if he says, no, you're right, if that's not there, if you want that feature added, it would be, I can do that for X dollars.
Okay, I think about, here's a, called line item software city government use that if you don't have a budget in there, the little red screen pops up saying this exceeds budget.
That's another program, you say?
Different program, yeah, but they don't do anything for tax systems, so
That's
it's not
better.
practical, but, so I mean, the fact of the matter is it could be done, if Kelly wants to do a tour, he could say, if this exceeds budget, screen me, let me know, and then we'll.
It's gotta be in there. I mean, that's a pretty complex software program from, the little I understand it, reading I mean, it's,
But each person picks and chooses how they want to write software, so I mean, the fact is, the information is there. It's not like it's not there, it's not impossible to get from there. It's, is it there, or do you have to tweak it? And that's what you need to ask them.
we don't have any extra money. What happens if we just keep doing the way we do here and we get to the end of the year and we don't have the money to replace it?
It's too late then.
Yeah.
So along those lines, we don't know which of these bills will put these budgets further over.
Or any other right now. Well, you already know the P&P is gonna go over more, because you've got an eccentric test bill in there.
From this, we can't cross-reference to this, really.
Not really, you'd have to look at each bill. And look at the account numbers, because the account numbers are on those reports.
Now, if we approve these and you run these checks, then you can rerun this report
Yes.
immediately.
Yeah.
So then as the invoices come in, you can put a red mark on them or whatever. If
That are over?
Right.
Right.
No, yeah.
Well, I'd still have to go through everything and find out if they're,
That report, basically, you already agreed to pay it. So,
This thing,
if they okay.
if you approve those bills, she run the same report, and then it'll show some of them being worse and some not being bad.
right, but then
The only other
then
thing
you
I
start
can
with a
do-
report and no bills in your hand. As the bills come in and you fill out a voucher and you decide which account they're gonna go to, you can look at this is only a few pages. Oop,
Just need the first 5 pages.
put a red X on that voucher,
Right.
and the next time we come, we'll have the vouchers that are being submitted for
Yeah.
accounts that are over budget. We'd have them at the top of the pile and we could discuss those with the people that it affected. And at that point, decide whether or not we want to amend the budget or let the budget continue to go over, or
Cut another line out of the budget, say, okay, you overspent supplies, so now your equipment budget is gone.
right.
Don't ask us for any toys, because you took your toy money and you decided to buy that.
Again, it's just a matter of timing when you.
If we
when
can't
you-
do that, then
Oh,
we
we need
really
the first
don't,
5 pages, right?
it diminishes the purpose of even going through the process.
Right, because in all reality, is the other issue comes up, could you reject any of those bills? Because the service, because like I said, I provided the service, so you got my stuff, so therefore, you owe me, whether you went over budget or not.
I know, but we could take recourse.
That's
If
right.
we don't know about it,
Correct.
we can't take corrective action.
You can address the problem, yes, absolutely.
So the process is to okay these bills, after they're paid, run the report, use that report as the basis of whether or not the next bills that come in are over or under budget.
And the only way that's gonna work is if you tell people they have to have their bills in, but the problem is also closing and payroll.
You decide the timing, you tell people when you need it. We don't know that.
Yeah.
We don't work.
Okay.
like that.
Right, the bills can come in, but until we close, we can't check them anyway. Okay? We close, payroll has to be done before we can close books. Okay?
Fine, we're gonna.
Okay, no, I'm telling you the process here, that's all I'm doing. Okay, payroll has to be done first. When did we finish payroll?
Yesterday.
Okay, payroll was finished, well, mostly it was finished
Wednesday.
Wednesday night.
Started.
Okay. Finished closing Thursday by lunchtime. This is every month, end of the month. Then you go in after you're done closing and post these in there. But you have to have this report before you can do that.
What report?
That report to check these. I'm just telling you the way the process is. There is, even if you tell people to hand the bills in 5 days ahead of time, it's not gonna matter. Are you following me?
Then you got a problem. You are, you cannot keep saying, there's a fix to this thing. I don't have the authority to sit down and fix it. Give me the authority to fix it and I will. Well, but I don't. You are the auditor. You have the ability to fix this.
I write the checks ahead of time, as long as, like yesterday is one of the times when there was a time limit for closing. Okay, yesterday was a quick deal. Normally, we don't meet the next day after closing.
Then adjust the meetings. Tell us when you want the meetings to correspond with the closing, and we will do that. This is not something to be argued over. This is something to be fixed.
Right, I'm not.
Okay, well, it sure sounds like it. Just adjust the meeting date so that it fits with your time schedule. So we have the bills in. We will come and pay the bills as long as we're given the information to pay them with. This is nothing but a scheduling issue here.
It's your guys' decision.
Well, I think that's what we'd like to have done.
I don't think
If it's
that's
our
unreasonable
decision.
to ask for that information.
We said you postpone it to the 8th instead of the 1st, so she has more time, I think, if we took that.
Sure.
Fine,
Yeah.
absolutely.
No, I know, but then their next meeting's only a week away. It's
No,
just.
but then, well, then both, I would say this is the part where, you know, when it really comes down to, those vendors are they're pushing every chance they get. And you got a policy, and just like we talked about, John, is they got a policy, boom, it's like, there's our policy. You don't like it, come to the next meeting and ask us to change it. If we say no, it's still our policy.
And why does it have to? Why can't we pay the bills once a month? We don't have to pay the bills on every meeting. It was always done once a month before. This is not a big problem to overcome.
Okay. Are we clear?
I said it's your guys' decision on what you want to do.
Well, I think you know what we want to do, right? Okay.
So we'll be made aware of the status of the budget when we're presented a bill, and whether or not it will take us over or not. That's all this is about, because it's pretty simple.
Cindy's not shaking her head, yes.
No.
And you want everyone, not just like a percentage, you want 1 cent or a zillion to decide. Sometimes they okay, we're within 1% or 5% or a dollar more. Just, that's all they need to set. If everything, if you're over budget, then you know, that's what you want. Not if it's over budget by bunch or if this much, it's over budget.
Why move the line? Zero's an easy number to remember.
Right. And do you want to talk about the other side too, where so you got something budgeted you're never going to spend, you want that brought forward as soon as you know? So I guess there's an equipment budget that also adds on our travel budget for a conference that we intend to.
Well, those kinds of things I think could be handled on a case by case.
Well, no, I'm saying it's serious, but that's how you address it. Because when you say, well, I didn't go to this conference, so therefore I want this stuff.
Maybe we should move out there so we can all sit and face each other. You don't like it?
Hey, Cindy, you can help us with that?
Getting kind of crowded in here.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you tell us when you want the meetings and we'll adjust that to fit your time schedule.
But you only give me Fridays, so it's got to be Fridays, right?
I don't think we said that.
Yeah, okay.
Yes, you did.
Then it's within 7 days. That still works.
It's later in the afternoon.
Well, no, but it can be, that's within 7 days. I mean, it could be the 7th. It's, yeah. I mean, that's no problem.
I think the reason we ended up doing it on the Fridays that we're doing it is to accommodate Sean's work schedule and Jamie's court schedule.
Yep.
So,
But it could be next Friday. And that would give her time, that would give her a whole another 7 days to do all this work, and then it would be fine. Yeah.
okay.
So to the nearest Friday that fits the schedule.
Well, she'd get enough time between the end of the month.
And there's no need to work at night or anything else. Just adjust it so you've got the time to do it, and it'll be fine.
Okay, with that said, does anybody have any more questions on these bills? Knowing that some of them may put budgets further over than they are, if in fact they're over now. Any questions?
Well, I move that we pay the bills as presented, with the stipulation that from here on out, we determine that balance of the budget that the bill is coming out of before it's approved.
I'll second the motion.
Seconded by Sean. Is there any discussion? Is there any discussion? Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. John?
Aye.
Dale?
Aye.
Ron?
Aye.
Sean?
Aye.
Troy votes aye. Motion carries.
Maybe we should,
Wayne and Jenny.
we should adjourn and move out there, I think.
You think so?
Oh, yeah.
Whatever you think.
You guys wanna move out into the courtroom?
We're fine.
Doesn't matter to me.
Me.
Who else is to come? Jamie? You can sit over here.
Bit cooler out there, Dennis?
I'll turn it over to Jenny. She sent an email out stating about the change order for a seal coat, or we're changing the oil from the MC 3000 to the CR 26. Oh, that's two. I don't think that's
They didn't get a copy of it, I just got a signed copy from
Oh, you got a signed copy. I did talk to Troy a little bit about it one day. Sure.
We had a request from the contractor. Contractor is more seal coating. They're the ones going to be doing the seal coat work on County 8 by Binford, and then County 2 by Red Willow. And they had requested to substitute, the plans were called out using MC 3000 seal coat oil, and they've asked to use a CRS 2P. The CRS 2P is a pretty common oil that basically any project done by the DOT, the state, they all use that. Majority of the counties are starting to go to that CRS 2P. It's just kind of the way things are going. The contractor requested it because when they have to switch, since most of the other projects are using that CRS 2P, to switch and use the MC, they have to completely clean out all of their distributors and their tankers and everything. So it's a, I guess, easier for them to jump from one project to the other, especially seal coats. You know, this project is going to take them a day and a half. So they had asked it. What you end up doing is with the CRS 2P, you end up shooting it at a little bit higher rate, but they've actually given us a discounted price per unit. So it works out to show as a no-cost change order. The rate that they proposed to us at this lesser cost per gallon is actually a few hundreds higher than we would actually shoot it. So we had just finished up a project for one of the other counties where they did this change order on. They're shooting it at it's a 0.42 gallons per square yard. We end up shooting 0.39. So the actual savings will be, when Wayne and I punched out, it's about $20,000 less. As far as the project is as good as long as you're getting the rate, you know, right when you're shooting it. We talked to the district, the materials guys there too, and they have no problem with different oil. So what it ends up being, I'll give you this, because I had just gotten it from the contractor. This is a copy of the change order. It just shows basically the addition of the new oil, the number of gallons, and then there's a different classification of chip that goes with it. Shows that being added, and then it shows the subtraction of the old oil and the old chips. And there's two different sheets. There's one for County Road 8 and then one for County Road 2. So because of some, you know, it rounds out to like the 1,000th of a cent. So one shows a 50-cent savings and the other is $1. So we just got that from the contractor. They have signed it. So it would go to you guys to basically approve it or not approve it.
Am I remembering right, they cut back on the amount of chips when they do this? Or is that just to keep the costs the same?
The amount of chips actually ends up, it is a little bit lighter on the chips, which I'm not honestly sure how that works out. I mean, the end product, you still have, the road is sealed and the seal coat's the same. So Because generally, if you're just bidding out a project using this oil, usually this oil is more expensive. So it ends up being a wash, I guess, either way you bid the project.
Do we have to decide today on that?
It would be best, they're talking about trying to get in and start working next week, so.
What?
You guys want to see this, I can pass
Well,
this.
no, I just, if they bid the project, what's the justification for changing then the services that they offer? I mean, typically then that has to be in their favor some way. What is their benefit from changing the spec on the product
You know,
compared to what we bid?
from the standpoint of the district, because we'd asked, Ed is the assistant district engineer at the DOT, and we'd asked them, and, you know, in their mind, they actually view this as a better oil, because you're getting, it's a CRS2P, so it's got a polymer in it, and as far as they're concerned, he calls it the Cadillac of the seal coat oils. So in their mind, they think it's a better product. So in that sense, it's a better deal for you guys.
At comparable rates, it's a better product?
Yeah,
Or is
you
it
end
better, I mean, there has to be a reason the contractor wanted to switch this.
Just because all their other projects are.
Mobilization costs, apparently.
Yeah, all their other projects are spec'd using the CRS2P, so.
And if you spec using the CRS2P, what rate do they spec? The same rate we're gonna use here or a higher rate?
0.39, she said.
Well, that's what they
Yeah.
changed this one to.
Oh, this is gonna be 0.43.
The contractor gave us the price using a rate of 0.42. When we would design a project or put one out, just not working with the contractor, we usually spec out a 0.38. So we usually like to get them to shoot a 0.38, 0.39 in that range. I'm not sure why he's actually giving you guys a better price per gallon that way. So I'm not really sure why they're specking it that high, because we wouldn't shoot it that high, because they're gonna end up with it's gonna bleed a lot. So you'd end up using more blotter. So, so in one way, that's I guess a win-win for the county. So.
Okay.
Yep, thank you.
Does anybody else have any questions for Jenny?
And the total cost is actually 20,000 less to the county.
Yeah, because when we punched out the rates, we just shot this on a county road, so a pretty similar type road. We were expecting it's going to perform the same as far as the rates we'll need. And with the little bit lower rates on the oil that were actually used, and then the chips, the quantity ends up being a little bit less. It was about $20,000 total for the two projects. So, you know, if the road ends up being a little drier, we're going to have to shoot a little heavier, but we'll shoot it to what it needs to be put down out there. But that's what I anticipate at this point.
Is this the original, or she must fax this to you or something?
She emailed it to me, she sent me the original, and I hadn't gotten it yet today, so if we sign this copy, I'll have to get you guys the original to sign for the file that has to go to the district, so.
Anything else?
Sounds like a good deal.
Need to make a motion for that one.
We do.
Okay. Well, I guess based on that information, I'd move we go ahead and make the change to the seal code.
I think all we need to do is approve the change order.
Approve the change order, I guess, yeah.
Been moved that we approve these change orders as presented to the seal coat projects. Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Seconded by Dale. Is there any discussion? Is there any discussion? Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
a reimbursement request, paid, or will pay $18,199 to mail. And request reimbursement of $16,290.89 from the state.
And that one is basically for the work that the contractor had done over approximately last month on the Sutton Road, that overlay project. We're requesting the reimbursement because that one is funded using the House bill money, so you get 90% back on that.
And Wayne, on the reason we're over on the budget is because we're waiting for the reimbursement to come, is that right? 81,000? From a prior bill we paid, I think. I think so.
Could be.
Yeah, so we've been sending them in at the same time.
Right, and see, we approved it, and again, same thing, and we didn't have the, we didn't have the grant or the money in the revenue side, so that's why this is over.
We're getting some
we'll be getting that,
reimbursements.
yeah, okay.
And it probably wasn't budgeted properly.
That-
Next time we will
Yeah.
do that correctly.
Yeah, because that, right now, it shows that, it shows the engineering account over by 81,750, and I think that was pretty close to the amount that we approved that was gonna be reimbursed.
And that's one thing that Wayne and I talked about with the next estimate that's gonna come through for the contractor. They're out there working now. So, I mean, by next Tuesday, they should have all the paving done. So you can imagine this next bill for the contractor is gonna be fairly large. So Wayne and I talked about, I believe we can submit a reimbursement ahead of time so that you can maybe try and get that money, and then pay your bill.
Yeah.
So that you guys aren't footing, I'm guessing the next one's gonna be several $100,000 easily.
And
So-
then Wayne just needs to make sure that at the end of the year, we amend your budget to show and then from there on out, we can do it.
Yeah, I received an email from Jason, I think it was his last name, from Casco, Benson, and they're talking about this same subject that we are as far as like 2015 projects and stuff. And he too was talking about being able to budget that money ahead of time. But we don't know exactly what funds might come from the legislature. There might be extra funds that come, but you can't until you know what the money is really. Like when we finally did have these meetings and they approved it, then we knew that we were going to get the 1.8 or the 90% of that.
Then we should have rebudgeted it so that when this came through, it wouldn't show up as a negative budget item. And yeah.
So that's what we talked about before we did that.
Okay.
And then she has some estimates for graveling. Talk about graveling, 26.
Basically, as it stands now, we'll kind of see where things come in. We don't anticipate the construction on the Sutton Road running over. At this time, I would estimate our construction engineering to come in less than what the dollar amount we have. So right now, it's looking over around maybe $170,000 left in our House bill money fund. The guys in local government at the DOT have strongly encouraged everybody to try and show that money spent this fall, so that when they start the next session, that everybody's kind of showing it zeroed out. So when they say, hey, we need more money, they can show that everybody spent their money. So we're looking at different projects. We talked about doing some graveling on County Road 26. Sounded like from Hannaford going west was probably the biggest area of need. That's roughly 10 miles. We looked at a couple different options. And obviously, if the county can do the work, you're probably going to be able to do it for less. But there's a problem right now with the availability of gravel in the area. And I know with even Wayne's crew being able to try and do that work yet this year. If Wayne were to do the work next year, we can't show that money spent until he actually does it. If we bid a project and award it, at that time we can request the money from the state, and then it's showing a zero balance on their end. So that's kind of the tricky part there. So if we were to look at bidding out a project, we could bid a project on that 10 miles. We talked about doing 2 inches of graveling, because the county can do some of the spot repair, there's a few soft spots. They can do some of that on their own, because if you pay a contractor to do that, it's gonna be quite expensive. So we could bid a project, 2 inches of gravel, 10 miles, bid it this fall, and basically put a completion date on there of, early next summer. That way it would give the contractors opportunity to do the work next spring, and they're gonna be able to get gravel, get you a better price. But then we can, like I say, if we can award it, we request reimbursement from the state, so we're all good on that end. When we look at costs of that, and this is nothing that you guys would have had in your packets, so I'll just give you some numbers here. Look at doing a couple options. We go from west of Hannaford all the way to County 3. It's roughly 10 miles, 2 inches of gravel, and that's basically we're paying somebody for the materials, hauling the material, placing it. We're gonna have to compact it, rubber tire roller, water it, everything that way. So that total, we're at about $350,000 for 10 miles.
What was the expected overage on what we were gonna have left over? Was it 80 some thousand dollars?
107.
107?
70.
70. Okay.
So doing that, you're stuck with about half that cost then still locally. The other option, because depending on what kind of prices you get for gravel, that tends to vary. But if you bid out a project, you could bid it with 2 alternates, because we could also look at just going to County Road 9, which is about halfway, about 5 miles. So you could bid it, doing the 5 miles on the 10, see what kind of prices you get. That way you'd have an option to scale the project back, so you wouldn't be committed to doing a 10-mile deal. And then that's gonna be right in that about 190,000, which with your 90%, you're pretty much perfect right there as far as minimizing the amount of local money that would have to come out.
2 inches is how many yards per mile, 1,500?
Yeah, we've got it by ton.
Well, if you got
What's
what a ton of gravel
Take
weight.
it times 1.25, you get yards, right?
We usually use 1.5. But then we're also adding in, we want to make sure when it's all said and done and they pack it, we've got 2 inches there. So we usually add another 25% for compacted. Yeah, so we've got 15,200 ton. So you're roughly about 800 yards a mile loose.
At $35,000. That's some nice gravel.
So it basically works out to what we're estimating for a per yard, it's about $13 a yard. So,
For the material, or delivered.
yep, material, hauled, placed, compacted, everything. So obviously when you're looking at just straight up cost of gravel, I mean, that
The
was,
math didn't work for me. $35,000 a mile,
At 800 yards.
800 times
It's
$13 is not 35,000.
35,000 by 800 is 400. 13, 14.
It's gotta be 2,500 yards a mile.
I didn't get my calculator to work here too.
Let's divide 35,000 by 800.
Yeah, we should be at about 1,000 yards per mile, sorry.
Still low.
So then we've got some additional, you've got a line item for some water, which is these are pretty minor. We have a line item in there for gold. And then they're gonna have some minimal traffic signing. But I mean, all those other miscellaneous items, you're looking at about $300,000 for the gravel part of it. So yeah.
That's $30,000
A mile.
a mile. yard. At 1,000 yards.
No.
It is.
That's my.
I talked to Corey from Fisher Industries, they didn't have anything at that Trevor Jacobson pit. It would meet all they had basically was 1 inch gravel. He said it's all baled out of the water, so it's pretty clean. Stuff, there's no plastic or PI in there to bind it together. He had 29,000 ton of it, $650 a ton. Tom Gilbertson was running into problems with the owner of that
Christiansen.
proposed pit, and the guy wants him to do dust control for 2.5 miles besides whatever else they had to do. So,
Where's that pit away?
it's Greg Mueller, I think, or something like that.
Down there.
Yeah, by the creek. So he's still working on that to see. I guess he could get that. At the time, this was before this dust control deal came in. He said it had to be at least 750 a yard, just out of the pile.
Did we really bath?
Give up.
Did you come up with? Must be a bug in your phone.
I don't know. That's weird.
So you're gonna continue to pursue options on that? We don't need to make a decision on that one today.
I don't think it has to be done today.
No, it's just a matter.
My question when you were talking about that is, I understand if you could treat it as if it's funds spent. What if we just buy the material? Does the same thing apply?
You could see if, I'd have to talk to them and see if, if you like bought a stockpile or something. If you can do
No,
that,
okay.
we can check into that and see if that's something that they think they would allow.
Okay.
So yeah, that time he did say that we could do it, and then we would have to treat it almost like a FEMA project, where we'd have to keep track of the hours of the equipment and the man and the product, what we put down and stuff in time, and then turn that bill and reimburse that. So
Right, it'd be just like a work order.
right, if we could buy the gravel ahead of time and do the project next.
And we could certainly keep our costs on paper to a minimum,
I think we
so
want
that
to
we
make
can
sure
get more
that
gravel than.
we don't
More
spend,
places and-
use that gravel on every other road probably, would be the only thing.
Yeah.
I'm sure you'd have to document something to show that you used it on the road, but no, we can definitely ask that and see if they
Okay, good idea.
certify it.
Okay.
Good idea.
So we can talk about that at the next meeting. One other thing, if I could bring up to you guys quickly that maybe we'll see if Wayne and I have a chance before the next meeting is just a heads up that in October, it's usually about the second week of October, is when you have meetings with the DOT to talk about your federal aid program for the roads and bridges. So usually August, early September, we start going through the sheet from last year and just kind of looking ahead, okay, what projects do we have, we are a couple of years out on, or what, just to kind of make sure we're prepared for that meeting. So Wayne and I will probably look through it just to see what's on there and hopefully catch you guys at either the next August meeting or the first one in September, just to make sure, because October sneaks up pretty fast.
Sure. Did you get a hold of Jack? Is he gonna fix that river crossing up there by now?
I don't know. I didn't know to, you know, I did talk to Bob Crooks, but I didn't know exactly how to tackle that project. That's another thing, I did get an email from the state saying that we did not qualify for the R funds. They said it was basically the counties to the west, western 2/3 of the state that got the money this year for the ER. Yeah, from Kindleton, yeah, this way. Barnstone didn't get it, so she carried the news on it. I have it here somewhere.
Just my notes for him.
Guess I didn't need it now for 2 years.
What's that?
No, no.
Okay.
I don't think I need to take more time. I got another quote from, got a quote from Horvick on a spray tank of stuff where we can wait till the 8th or whatever.
Okay.
And once those things are signed, I'll give them to Christie and she'll make sure that it gets sent out for reimbursement.
Well, we did not approve that reimbursement request.
Oh,
Not yet.
thought I saw you signed it.
That'd be a good.
No, I was signing the change orders.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yep.
I got that.
The progressive estimate, we approved bills, we approved
No,
Everything's
there's
right here.
there's a letter in here on letterhead
For the 16,000.
requesting reimbursement
Okay,
on page 19. We talked about it, but we did not have action on that, and I believe we better do that.
It's just a letter. They came in. Is that Joey's? Is it yours, isn't it?
Okay. We've already talked about that.
Okay.
That's just the flood damage.
Oh, sure.
Yep.
This,
Yeah, you guys need it.
can I make a copy of it?
Sure.
I guess I'd entertain a motion that we send in the reimbursement request to the North Dakota Department of Transportation.
I'll move we submit a funding reimbursement request to North Dakota DOT for $16,298.89.
Motion's been made by Sean to send in the reimbursement request to the North Dakota Department of Transportation for $16,290.89. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Seconded by Dale. Is there any discussion? Is there any discussion? Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. Sean?
Aye.
Dale?
Aye.
Ron? Aye. Sean?
Aye.
Troy votes aye. Motion carried. Anything else, Wayne?
That's it.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Wayne.
Thank you.
I move we take a 10-minute break.
Been moved that we take a 10-minute break. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Seconded by Dale. Is there any discussion? Is there any discussion? Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Meeting adjourned. Or not adjourned, meeting recess.
Who has,
Now you can put a face on
they
it.
have to sign that?
Perfect.
Okay. How about this other one? Does anything have to be done with this one?
I get a driving state.
This is long as the one that's signed.
Okay, you have to sign this one, Troy. Oh,
It's the same, it's the same one as the.
oh, is it the same one? Oh, you gave it to me twice, okay.
Yeah, it was in that
Usually
first
they're running
package.
after anyway, so
Okay.
just be it.
Okay, what I was trying to explain, John, is if I can write the checks before the meeting, I can run that report and give it to you, and then bring the checks up here, and anything you want to void, you can void. And have this report done. That is easier than doing it the other way.
All I'm concerned with is Cindy is not okay to check that's over budget.
Right,
Anyway, you want to do that?
okay, and you got it now, so if you want to pull any, you can still pull them.
No. I want to know that if I'm going to approve this check, whether or not that's over budget or not.
That's what this does too. See this first column, the ones we highlighted? That's what that is, and we just find that bill in here and we void it then, and not pay
I
it.
know, but Cindy, it's not our job to say, to go look this up and say, is it over budget? That's the auditor's job to say, this check is presented and this is going to put us over budget. That's what I need to know.
Okay?
Take people out of the house.
That's all we're looking for. So if this check is going to put us over budget, then we need to know that. This is for your reference. As long as you presented this every month, we don't have a way of cross-checking this to this. How do I cross-check this account to these checks? There is no way to do that with what you presented me here. Because it's not specific enough on what account it comes out of.
Okay.
Otherwise, that would be real easy to say, I can't cross-reference this check to a particular budget.
Can't fix that issue. If it doesn't fix itself, it's never. Some guys get
Change order? Okay, I need a copy of that.
What I'm gonna need to do is the contractor signs this, email me a copy. The original's coming in the mail, I didn't have it. So when I get the original, I'll get that to you guys, and then Troy will have to sign the original.
I still want to.
But yeah, he's going to make a copy of that.
If you get the full ride, you're going to be there. But nobody pays you? But I never asked the guy, actually I shouldn't say that, because I asked the guy after the company's financial scholarship. Because I said, there's a couple farmers in Montana that look at the full price. Like, hey, I'm not paying full price, but I got one, I feel like you're good, I don't see you good.
Other than, I totally
That looks like the Ramsey show at night or 8 o'clock. And I took off, I got $500,000, what's together, what college you going to? I go, yep, you're right. I mean, I still don't have right mind. No,
Except for 70. Yeah, it went up to 80 because it was down.
What'd you change it to? I said at 60.
Did Nancy get her broccoli Dad said?
I think it is.
On the four-wheeler or the Ranger? Oh, shit. She's turning into it. Tipped it in.
Also, those costs are low.
Oh,
You know, I mean, and they'll talk about it.
right.
If you look at the thing,
Their foot went out when it went over.
the cost is up.
You that on your door, or do you take yours off?
I traded.
Oh, you did?
22 miles.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody,
You got 900.
everybody says, the next thing you know, all of a sudden, well, that 50%.
They got decent money for the 800, or they beat that money pretty bad.
I had 4,000.
We had a year and a half.
Yeah, it's 2 more years old. And now I need 2,500.
We got a cast. Cast.
College too. It's a big thing, if you go to college, I tell you what.
You're gonna have to ask Brian if he scares me on purpose or by accident.
You think he'll tell?
What's going on? Where the shooting line is,
Yeah.
Ray came,
Next thing you know, they're working
and an air tractor passed in front of me at
But I mean, that's
12 feet off the ground.
I'd say.
Maybe 75 feet in front of me or less.
I'd say it's deliberate then.
And he went over by the thrash machine. He raised up over that.
I've never seen him out of control before, so I would have to say deliberate. But I'm sure you know it was you.
He's in stealth mode.
He was on the way over to your dad's doing it.
I'm sure he knew who it was.
They transit at 200 knots.
They really get moving, especially
You don't even hear it till it's by, yeah.
those 402s are pretty slippery and not much frontal area to them. They really get going.
It was big enough where I wasn't looking up when I saw it.
God, I seen a neat picture. Kid over trains and had a trail camera up. He's got a picture of this box out there. He's turning around, and it happened to catch. There's a aerial applicator right in the back. It's just perfect behind to do this. What's the chances of getting that picture, even if you tried?
Call the meeting back to order. Next thing on the agenda is meet with the department heads, and I guess I'd like to thank you all for coming in. Is it cooler out there?
Yeah.
As you know, it's kind of the kickoff to budget season in the public entity world, and I guess we discussed the overall budget some at the last meeting, and we just wanted to get everybody together, and as we move forward, have an idea of what the county commissioners are thinking, and hope we can get everybody kind of moving in the same direction. One of the large unknowns for 2015 is the situation with the new courthouse. There are so many unknowns surrounding that. We don't have a very good handle on what we should be budgeting for 2015. I know there have been a couple of payments made, I see, on the grant. It would be nice to know if the whole amount will be funded. As you all, I'm sure, are aware, we've received a letter from Zimney Foster and Grand Forks representing construction engineers, and it was also sent to the building authority, of course, and they've given us 10 days to get current with the work that has been done. The number in the letter was some north of 700,000. Now, how you get from that to what I think is more realistic, I don't know that. I know that they spent $49,000 on propane and they billed us for $126,000, for instance. I'm not of the mindset that even if we could, that we pay them an extra $70,000 for something that the county did not receive. But with that said, it appears that there are going to be things that we can't foresee going forward. One of the things that was pointed out during the county commissioners meeting, as we talked about where we are and where we're going to try to move towards, it was pointed out that the levies in the county have nearly doubled since 2009. And with that said, I understand that that hasn't all gone into the general fund. And in fact, the largest infractor, I would call it, of absorbing those increases probably been the school, but there have been increases in the general fund. Now, one number that was thrown out by the commissioners is that we try to have an overall reduction of about 10% from the 2013 budget that was in place when we took office. Keep in mind that we are probably 2/3 of the way there today, because we're not going to put the commissioners' salaries back in place, and there are a lot of things that we're already doing to accomplish that. Now, if we can, we'd like to get somewhere close to that. And if I'm leaving anything out, you guys can jump in here, or if anybody has any questions, or feel free. Appreciate the chance to get together with everybody for sure, and just kind of get the ball rolling. Of course, we're not asking for anything from anybody today. We wanted to have this meeting before you start working on your budget. One thing that I would say, and it's been a struggle for us being so ignorant when we came into office and not completely understanding the budgeting process at this level. One thing that, I would like to ask, and I think it's been discussed over and over and over, is that if there are revenues that have a good possibility of coming in the next budgetary cycle, that they be included in the budget, so we don't have to do all this gyrating during the year. There will be things that come up, and we understand that, but we should try to at least get most of that stuff accounted for ahead of time if there's some knowledge that it is going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
It leaves a lot of interpolation if that's not done.
I just have a question. I know you want our budgets by the 15th. Do you want to meet with us those days, or are you going to set up a schedule on the 15th or prior to that with who you're going to meet? Just kind of curious about that.
I guess we certainly want to meet with the department heads to discuss their budget proposal.
Right.
Is it easier to do it one at a time?
I guess I don't really care what the other departments, but I mean, I care, but not, waiting along with mine, it doesn't affect me,
Right.
so. It's up to you guys, I guess.
Is everybody clear on how the process is supposed to work? And Harold can probably, should we go over that, so it's just so everybody's on the same page and how this is supposed to go forward?
If there's gonna be changes, how it's been done in the past, I think that would be great, because we've all been working under the same system until this year. So we've always done our budgets, what we've done. If there's changes, throw them out, we're here.
Well, I can only offer my understanding of how it's supposed to work, and Harold can correct me if as we start this process, each department should prepare a budget which includes their expenses for the following year. List every expense on one side of the budget. Then they should list their anticipated revenues. The revenues don't have really, as we're talking at the general fund, the revenues become a part of the general fund. The expenses are each individual budgets, and if you want a line item, that would be better yet. So then, as we go through, like say the commissioner's budget, we'll use that one. It comes in and Ron prepared it, and he giving us a salary of $2,000 a year, and we said no, we don't. Ron, take that back, do it over again, until we finally arrived at what the commissioner's budget should be. It doesn't have to be a negotiation. It has to be somewhere to the point where the commissioners feel that's a correct number. Then that number becomes the expense side. Then we take the revenues that are expected to come into the commissioners, that the commissioners would bring in. There would be hardly anything on that side. And then we would take the carryover from that budget, and we would apply the carryover, the revenues, and subtract that from the expenses, and the difference would be made up by the tax levy. So you can see the importance of identifying all revenues, because if you don't identify a revenue, it has to be made up by the tax levy. And if a revenue comes in late after the budget is set, it does not increase the amount of money that you get to spend on the expense side. It will become an excess in that budget, which hopefully would be carried to the following year. Now, when we're dealing with the general budget, the revenues, the general budget is one living, breathing budget of its own, which has a bunch of little budgets within it. All the revenues come into the general side of the budget. The expenses can be out into the department. So Bob's department, for instance, might bring in, conceivably, he could bring in more revenues than his expenses were. That's just the way it is. They're contributed to the general fund. So as we go through this, keep in mind that by leaving something out on the revenue side, you are costing the taxpayers money, because in order to meet the expense side, we have to make that money up from somewhere, and it's always made up from the tax levy then. It's a pretty simple process. The problems come where it's incomplete, where something is missed. Unforeseen problems, there's nothing we can do about that. We'll have to go back and just fix that after the fact. But we're not operating with any surpluses here. So fixing an unforeseen expense isn't as easy as it has been in the years past, because there is no slush fund, so to speak, to fix this. What I would like to see this year is any savings that we have overall in the budget does not equate to a decrease in taxes. It becomes a reserve fund within the general fund that can be used for unexpected expenses. And then the quantity of that reserve fund that's not used would carry over into the following year, which then would affect the amount of tax levied. So we would have a 1 year buffer where we couldn't reduce taxes, but that would give us hopefully a little bit of cushion to operate on, because as we sit now, we have $130,000 of cushion to operate on, and that isn't enough. Typically, the Century Code allows up to 75% as a reserve, Harold. Some counties actually do that, so they take their budget and then they take it times 75% and they put that as a reserve. I think Barnes County is probably a good example of that. Some people view a prosperous county in a government in a favorable light? I don't, because government only derives money from its taxpayers, and if the county government has excess money, that means it came from taxpayers and they have less. So it is in everybody's best interest to operate the county efficiently and with the least amount of taxpayer input possible, because we all live here and this is a business, and if it's not healthy financially, none of us within the county are going to be prosperous either. So this isn't our money, these are the taxpayers' dollars. We have to balance somehow what their needs against what they're willing to pay, and that's, Dale hit it right in the head. Everybody wants lower taxes and more services. And that's the balance you have to somehow try to achieve.
Based on line items, how detailed do you want expenses?
I think Ron had that, well, how detailed the expenses.
Just look over line items?
I think this is the way you've been doing it as far as your budget goes.
Yeah, I just wanted there to be a change to it.
Yeah,
I agree, yeah.
yeah.
I think the money items in the past were sufficient enough.
Mm-hmm. And then I think there was a misnomer that Bob brought to light, that by listing a revenue, you somehow increase the budget, which isn't the case. Just the opposite. By not listing a revenue, you increase the obligation of the taxpayer. So a listed revenue, unless the money is spent outside of that revenue, actually is a help to this whole process.
Harold, you got anything to add to that?
I think one of the things when you look at it as a commission, because they're going to have to make choices, because you're going to get a list of expenses in, and you have to decide you're comfortable with it. But also, one thing John Ron, you mentioned a line item, is at some point in time you're going to have to talk about why that number is what it is. Either, they're going to fall back to last year, which is the first line. Then after that, then you say, okay, and why am I doing the same thing? So it's a justification of those expenses. I mean, so the budget itself, you're going to look at it from that perspective. The second thing you have to decide is how lean and mean you want to be. Because as a management tool, you don't want to have a bunch of possible expenses rather than probable expenses. And this is what's going to happen, and it's going to fall back on the commission to say, okay, we're going to have to see where everything's at, and on a relatively routine basis, talk about that. Are you guys still on track? What do you mean by on track? I mean, the commission can become very much involved and can spend a considerable amount of time in that process. I think that's great as a budgetaholic, I have them. But that's a part where, you could make each line item as low as possible with the understanding that every time something changes, they're popping up here saying, okay, here's the deal. I didn't have this conference and travel. I think I should go. This is why. This is how much it's going to cost. At that point in time, in theory, you would amend the budget to allow them to do that. But as a commission, that you have to take all of them together and say, is this still a reasonable amount? The other thing you have to look at with the revenues is, use Bob for a good example, because he will get reimbursement for overtime on grants, for click it or dig it or whatever. So if he says, no, does that mean that those two numbers become outside the scope or not? Because two would not happen, or they would both happen, or would neither happen. So you can't say, Bob, use your salary, use a click it money to pay for your base salary. I can't do that. So when you look at those revenues, the other thing to make sure of is that if you cut the expense, that you'd say, well, no, that revenue no longer exists because the program we cut doesn't allow us to get reimbursement. But I mean, that's the part where everything ties together, and just keep everything tied together, so when they come forward with those revenues, they need to say, okay, this revenue equals this expense. So if you cut this expense, you can't leave this revenue in. But that's the process as you evolve, we'll be doing. So.
Mm-hmm.
But that's just how you grow.
I mean, it's no different than looking at your checkbook balance before you write the month-end checks. You make sure that you have the money there in order to do it. I mean, this is a very simple process.
And, once you set the revenue, then you gotta live with it. That's just it. And that's a part where, in the past, And just, you experience it now, where people will put a number down and will go over. But if you're not gonna go over, that's the part where, you know, as department heads, they should be proactive also. And not say, I'm gonna wait for Cindy to have to do her stuff, to give me a number. They should send an email to the commissioner or whatever and say, right now, let you know that what I thought I was gonna spend, I'm not. This cost went up or whatever. But the whole budget process for work is every month something happens. Not this huge great analysis, but at least you gotta be worried about, oh man, I forgot about that. Or as a commission, and the other thing I think about is, if you have more money coming, so if state aid is budgeted and you do better, as a commission, do you want to talk about that as how you want to spend it? Or do you want to, like you talk about, say, great, more money for next year? But technically, both sides of the budget have to be addressed. So if you have more money, do you want to have more expenses? Or do you want to have more reserve? But that's the process also. So when they talk about going over, they could say, I'm going over this line item, I got 3 alternatives. I'm gonna cut another expense, I found new money to pay for that, or did you carry over some money? But that's ultimately, every time you come to a budget process, those are things you're gonna ask yourself.
But those remedies do not work within the general fund because the new money is a part of the general fund, and it would have to be allocated to the county commission, to the auditor's office, or to the treasurer's office.
That's commission you do it.
Right, yeah.
That's where you would, see, they come to you and say, hey, can't you use that extra state aid money? And you go, or,
Right.
or, you know, but that's the thing is, the revenue side, and that's what you talk about, is very true, where people always go, oh, just lowball it, that way you're, but if you don't, if you're gonna do that, then you need to say, then if there's more money they could get. But that's a part where, as a management, you manage both sides. If revenues are up, then you need to make a conscious decision. Okay, that's good because that 130 is too low. It should be higher anyway. We're gonna keep it in that pot. Or we told them once we had 150, we're not gonna, you know, I'll give you, if you look at Valley City School, because we had just said on the radio where they had 10% as a goal. Hit 13%, so they said we're gonna reinstate all our expenses when we come. Because we don't need to. And that was their philosophical choice, where they could say, you know what, painful, we made it, we're gonna stick with it, and maybe next year you get 15%. But that's as a commission, every time you make a decision, that final number is the one that's gonna be affected by you guys, whatever you carry over. And that's always, when you approach, and every time you're approached by the department heads, you gotta always keep that in mind. Because just like what Connie says is very true, each one's gonna say, here's my little pot. And I'm gonna talk about my little pot. And I don't care what the other little pots are doing, per se, because I'm not gonna let them, I'm gonna stand on my own. Well, you guys don't get that choice. You gotta put all the pots together, go, you know what, we're running into problems over here, so even though you're doing better and you think you can do something, we gotta make some fixes over here too, and that's how we're gonna fix it.
Yeah. And that brings up another thing that has been systemic in government is if you don't spend it, you don't get it the following year. That cannot be a policy here. If there can be savings, then the savings has to be realized, and spending for the sake of spending your budget, using your budget up, from my point of view, will be frowned upon. That is not an efficient way to run any business. That money is not ours. It belongs back towards the credit of the taxpayers, and that's where I intend personally to make sure it goes.
We need to talk about flood budgets then.
Can I raise a question on just individual budgets? You said a 10% cut is what you're looking at from each individual department.
Overall.
Overall, okay.
You know, for instance, we cut $60,000 out of the county commissioners, well, from an overall standpoint.
Well, that's good to hear, because I already took a 16% cut in March, so I wouldn't want another 10% out of mine.
Right.
So.
Well, I mean, the cuts that took place for 13 will stay in place, and if you use those cuts, that actually took $150,000 towards the $220,000 we're looking for. That doesn't mean that there couldn't be further cuts to the budgets that were affected. This is not an accumulative, it's per year. So if we kept the same cuts we have in place now, we would need another $70,000.
So, if I am understanding it right, whatever we were cut to, we can't go over that for next year.
Well, you can do whatever you want, but it might cause,
Okay,
it
well,
might cause a discussion.
yeah, okay. That's just what I wanted to know, because I have to try to figure out how to budget for my office staffing, and that's,
Right.
Our intent, I thought, was to let everybody know that the county's not in very good financial shape, and we have so many unknowns that we need to do everything we can to try and we're not going to be able to foresee everything, and we're going to have huge problems financially. And it's probably going to get to the point where the state is going to mandate that we raise taxes. It's going to be 10 days from now, judging from the letter we received, we're going to be sued. And from that point on, there is no quick fix getting out of it. It's going to have to proceed down those lines, and there is no easy way out of this thing.
I have a question. Like, I've been supposed to do this weed spraying stuff now. How do I budget for that? Is it still through the weed board, or is it?
In my way of thinking, the money that was budgeted for that then would become part of your budget. So it would be a line item within your road department for the dollars that were budgeted for the weed
there is only
spray.
$71,000 in that budget, just so everybody's clear on that. That's what you had to operate with, and then the 1 mil now that's coming in, we only have the 1 mil. And if we don't show that we can leverage up to 3 mils and keep up to 3 mils in the budget, we won't get our landowner assistance program grants. So we won't be able to cost share to producers, which is something we'll have to consider.
It'd be nice to talk to, like, even Dale or whatever, you have my portfolio as a road, kind of figure out what you think we're gonna need for that.
Well, no, it would be dependent. You would use as a starting point, you would use the budget that we had last year for spraying weeds.
No,
Then that would become a line item within the road department budget, and it would disappear from the existing budget that it was in.
How about for the expenses for equipment and things like that then, because there's gonna be a big outlay for
We won't
equipment.
get our funding back from the state. We can't put it in the road.
I think Cindy is right. I think that in order to get this, the funding from the state, I think it needs to have its own separate permit.
Well, we can hire the road department to do it. Yeah, well, and then,
But as far as moving around the budget, I don't think it's possible. But yeah, hire your road department to do it, pay the road department, that's the goal.
Okay.
It'd be the administrative.
So the administration would say the same, you would just have a different contractor.
So we'd have to run like a
And he'd have to
contractor.
put it on his
figure out-
revenue side.
And he would put it on his revenue side.
Yeah, it's nice.
And it's, yep.
That's,
So the cost, I mean, it wouldn't be any different than the subcontractor doing it. If that's the way we have to do it to keep the funds flowing, you would be basically, the road department would basically be bidding the contract.
And then the equipment would come out of the roads budget since they're gonna be a contractor on their own. The equipment would be held by the roads department for it then?
Well, right now when we bid it, the equipment is within the price of the bid price. The contractor bids it, puts a cost for his
Yeah,
equipment
but
in
they
there,
don't
so.
have the equipment, so that's.
No, but-
wondering where-
But, you know, all the costs of materials, when we pay it out, that's not all costs of materials. Part of that is the operation of the contractor's business. It would be the same thing here.
I'm just wondering where the equipment initially that purchase, those funds are gonna come for the purchase of the equipment. If they're gonna come out of that budget or out of the weed budget.
Well, they would come out of the weed budget. The weed budget is paying for it right now when they're hiring a contractor. They are in essence leasing his equipment.
Right now, we pay we were paying $115 an hour to contractors, so we were spending roughly $3,000 to $4,000 a year. The initial investment in equipment is going to be more than that. So is that going to come out of the weed budget?
We'll have to look at that.
Okay. Because I don't know that we will be have enough funding in there to leverage the LAP money if we take that money out of that budget.
Well, I'm confused then. 3 mills is, how does 3 mills equate to $4,000 or $5,000?
That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that we have to show we have 3 mills in our budget in order to access the landowner assistance program grants
Okay, and the 3 mills in which budget?
in our weed budget.
Okay.
So we have to keep that much money, the equivalent of 3 mills has to be in the budget in order for us to show that we have the funding to run the landowner assistance program. So my concern is if we take the equipment costs out of that, we will drop that budget, we'll drop the funds in that account below 3 mills.
And is it budgeted every year at 3 mills?
Yeah, it has to be in order to access the funds, but we only levy a mill for it.
Normally we levy 2
Normally.
mills.
Because you have a high enough balance in your,
What's that?
Yes.
because you have a high enough balance.
Yeah, we have high enough balance, and that's why we're able to access the LAP.
You need to maintain roughly $48,000
Yeah.
in your account, but you have 71 now.
Yeah, we have 71 now, so it's just, we have to be careful when we're purchasing equipment and that type of stuff, that we don't drop it down too far.
Sure.
But we do reimburse
Harold, since you're here, and we've been rolling this question around for months. The county has received roughly $160,000 from that DES grant.
170, yeah.
Now, let's just say that the $988,000 comes into the general fund. How do we get that to a project that's not owned by the county without breaking the law?
Well, you're gonna have more checks being written to earn the 988, I'm assuming, right? Because I know you've spent enough, all entities have spent enough to earn that, so you will be writing some checks out to cover that.
Don't know that, Bob.
Well, there's still pay requests coming from construction engineers that are unpaid. So there'll be a percentage that'll go towards the EOC. Finished product, we got cement before all those things get too low.
But the EOC is not split out of the courthouse in the UCC to the Bank of North Dakota or in the lease between the county and the building authority. So it's hard for me to prove that we're not just reimbursing a private entity for money that they spent.
Like, when you go through all the different bills paid and the bills you will pay, this comes down, it's gonna still come down to, the EOC is gonna have to show $1.3 million, right? For the,
Yeah, 1.315.
so ultimately, that threshold hasn't been met yet?
No, and it won't, because even though the county paid, they were reimbursed a portion of it by the building authority or the Bank of North
That's
Dakota,
right.
which nullifies basically there's no way to unwind that.
Well, there'll be, at some point in time, they're gonna have to say, and again, this is where it was to say, we've got to, at least on paper, if not officially, unwind it, to show that these costs have one way or another been paid for by each entity. Or, I mean, like you talked about, you mentioned, I think the last time was, either that or they're going to have to accept the building authority as a grant.
The only way to, from this point forward, to run all the payments out of the county and prove that they are actually expense of the county is to run the project over by $100 million.
To meet what they say.
To meet the requirement. They're shaking your head at us. That is the only way to do it.
Right, no, but to meet their
That's right.
the actual writings,
Yep.
the verbiage.
Because then we would actually, and not be reimbursed. We would have to write those checks and then we would be in compliance.
Well, but then you'd be able to keep the money for the EES grant.
Right, but the project would be $1 million over budget. Well, so subtract 170,000 from the 998,000, that's how far it would be.
And there's still a title issue.
Yeah, and the title issue is
Spend it all no matter what.
Yeah, there's a lot of, there is a lot of where they're gonna have to either waive or accept, or whatever term you wanna use, taking the total cost, saying, show me every bill you paid, every contractor, and every entity related to that.
We did that already.
But I'm just saying, but that's how ultimately they're going to say, you don't need to spend that extra million because we will give you credit for this other one, even though technically we don't have to.
Yeah, you missed one alternative. It's deny, and I'm afraid that's what's happened.
Well, and you know, it's interesting to watch that process, but there's definitely a risk where they could come back.
Well, as of now, they have denied
Right.
$850,000 of this.
Right, and that's where when you come back to talking about the money, where it's gonna come from if you have to pay construction engineers that lawsuit. Right now, there is not a pot of money. And that's where someplace along the line, that uncertainty has to be addressed. You're absolutely right. And always gonna be, but I mean, that whole courthouse thing, I mean, just like you're talking about the whole budget process, you can make everything just sugar sweet and say we got it all, we're gonna be good, and we're gonna have, this money can be reimbursed to ourselves, and we're gonna have money sitting in these accounts, like the 290 we took out or whatever. I don't foresee that ever happening, but I mean, you could make a claim that it could happen, and in theory it could. And you make the claim that they're gonna go back and deny everything, in which case, when you get sued, because those guys say we performed the work, and you look at the building, it's not, you know, four posts on a piece of cement, so therefore, they go to court, they go, we did the work, we gotta get paid. And you go, well, that's a good point, but we don't have money for it. So the question is, will be a middle where some place where all the parties can get together and say, okay, here's the deal. Could have been done better, should have been done better. We learned not to do it this way again. How can we get through? And if DES is down, the construction engineers and the building authority themselves, there's potential. I sit there and say it's gonna happen without a doubt. I wouldn't say that, I don't know. But
Are we through the department heads? I know some here have things to do.
I think so. Unless anybody has any questions, we don't have to be done with them. I just didn't want Harold to get up and leave.
Yeah, I need that.
I mean, but they'll be but as department heads, they'll be integrated in the system, so just like, and go back to what Connie said, very true, is you prepare your own, but then the commissioners might come back, you know, with Jilton also, is you say, okay, the 10% cut, somebody might have 0% cut, right?
I presume.
Conceivably, some could have 0 and some could have 20%. And that's a final decision, so when you look at it, and you could have the best case possible for your budget and say, I need every dime, and but they're gonna say, you know what, everybody needs every dime plus. Some dime's not gonna get furnished, and that's a decision you guys get elected to make. So, so ultimately, they'll come in, they'll make their case, and you'll say, yep, and then at the end, they have to balance all the different pieces. And somebody could be a winner, and somebody could not.
And it is a lopsided negotiation.
Yes. Yep. But that's ultimately where that's at.
Okay. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, Harold, you know, not to thrash this horse while the flies are collecting, but
Yeah.
in my eyes, it was probably illegal for the county to pay the $290,000. It's water under the bridge, but it went into a private project. The county has no title to that building.
See, this is the one where it gets, and again, when you look at all the different messes and messiness of each of those entities, the one thing if you know, the money went.
You're gonna rate them? You got a messiness scale?
Really? There we go. But you know, there has been money going back and forth between the county and the building authority. And that's what I'm saying. So somebody's gonna have to say, you know what? Even though this wasn't what should have happened or did happen, we're gonna pretend that that's what happened. But that's what it's gonna have to be, is each side's gonna say, in the pure sense, is it right? And your answer is exactly what you're doing now. The answer is no. And they're gonna say is, okay, can we make it less stinky? And I don't know, that's the part where DES is gonna have to, at some point in time, is gonna have to say, here's our criteria. And I don't know where they're gonna come from. I have no idea, but that's what it's gonna take, is for them to say, we're gonna interpret this direct statement fuzzily. And other than that,
Now you're asking a bureaucrat
I
to
know.
take risk on your behalf
I know.
with nothing to gain.
They've already defined it.
That's incorrect, because the ultimate responsibility for where these dollars go rests upon the recipient, which is us.
Right.
So the DES might very well say, here, take the money, with the caveat that you need to obey the covenants of the grant in order to distribute it, and I think that's what they'll probably do. Then the money is in our hands, and we cannot, without committing at least, well, we would be committing a crime if we were to distribute that money to a private entity. And it's that plain and simple. You cannot take public money and send it to a private entity. And there's just no way around that.
no, I know, but one of the problems you have, again, on the Stinko meter, is when the county paid 100% of the first estimate, that was not correct. Because it wasn't all theirs, right?
No doubt.
Yeah. So from that point forward, everything now is wrong.
You're looking at it as if what was done, you're looking at it as if what the county did was the county's problem. I look at it as the 5 county commissioners stepped outside their legal authority, thus stepped outside their cloak of immunity. They were advised by council. You can't say you didn't know better. They had council on board that advised them to sign a lease agreement or a construction agreement without having the funds available. That is blatantly against the law. Once they have the knowledge, or should have had the knowledge they were breaking the law, then the county is no longer liable for that. They might have to pay it up front, but they will have to go back after those 5 county commissioners, because they, in my estimation, stepped outside their authority as county commissioners. So I'm not willing to take responsibility for what those 5 people did, and I don't think the county should have to take responsibility for what they did. I think they acted outside the law, just as if they would have raided the treasury and sent the money to some other corporation. And that's my stance on it, and again, I think that'll prove out what happens.
Yeah, and the one thing where, just like when construction engineers should have sent 2 billions, and which everything should have been structured. You're right, and the structure itself, put yourself in a bad spot. And the question is somebody going to be willing to bail you out? Comes down to either a professional person, maybe trying to get some way to get, the national Homeland Security go, let's waive this requirement. I mean, I've seen goofier things done. Or Major Emergency Service saying is, if there's an issue, we'll make it state money, and then we don't have to worry about it. I mean, I've seen, technically, in Valley City, Barnes County, those home buyouts that they had, they had like 4 houses. This guy didn't want it, and they added this guy. Well, they came back and said, in fact, this guy doesn't want it, we're good with it, but this guy's not in your scope. So you owe us that money back.
Yeah, but that's
But no, it's not, because then what happened was, Barnes County said, we're not gonna pay, and FEMA said, yeah, you are. And what happened was, Dalrymple finally said, tell you what, we'll pay FEMA back for it. So you're out of it. That's the thing, if the state wants to bail you out and say, okay, forget this $1 million DES grant, we'll make it $1 million state grant, and we'll put less hoops on it. And then you guys find a way to work it out. I mean, that's, I'm not saying it's gonna happen.
There is no legal way to do it, and unless the state is willing, or the federal government is willing to write the check directly to construction engineers, there is no possible way to get that money through this county and I'm not accepting responsibility I'm not going to jail for something stupid to
No,
have
I'm saying-
past county commissioners
But
did.
maybe they will have a check out construction here. Maybe state could go, you know what, you guys, we want
And
this to go away.
maybe I'll win the lottery tomorrow, and maybe you as a federal taxpayer would be fine with
No.
having federal dollars to bail this out. That's
No,
not.
I'm thinking state dollars, the federal government would never do it, but I'm saying the state could say,
Let's speak in realities. And the reality is that we're in a mess here. We're probably not gonna get the money. We have to have some way to mitigate the damage to the taxpayers of Griggs County. And if we keep looking at pie in the sky, we're never gonna get it.
right, I'm just saying, no, and I agree with the fact that sit there and to create this great feeling, but ultimately, I mean, this would be a time to talk to the governor's office and say, here's where we're at. What can you do for us? And if they say we can do something, that's, I mean, if you could say, we'll turn back to DES grant, and we'll get state money, which, you know, I mean, I'll give you a great example of that on the Minnesota side. You know, town of Oakport, which is like just north of Moorhead, that whole flood control is all state money, and they just send in a request, and that state sends them a check. And right now, they're triple over budget, what they said they're gonna spend.
You're assuming that Griggs County is liable for this project. They're not.
No, I'm saying-
The reason the
no, I'm
project
saying
was
you're
built
right.
is because Griggs County taxpayers said you can't build it this way. The reason this whole structure's in place is because they went around the rules and regulations so they could build it. We have a lease agreement with the building authority saying they'll finance and build it. Griggs County is not associated with this project.
Yeah, well, what I'm saying is you'd be a facilitator, not necessarily an obstacle. And I'm saying they might ask you to say, okay, here's what we need you to do. We need you to facilitate this for us.
There's no evidence that there's no evidence, there's no track record, there's nothing
Well,
that
there's nothing.
suggests that that's gonna happen.
You guys are totally off the reservation and then you have past history, so there's nothing you can rely on to say, what happened when they did this other stuff?
Yes, there is something we rely on. We have 9 days now to answer whether or not we're gonna pay the money.
Right.
And I can tell you the track it takes after that.
Oh, no,
So,
that's right. I'm saying,
let's be practical.
no, what I'm saying is, you're right in that perspective. The other path is, DES has never had to deal with this situation. You know, the state's never dealt with the situation. I've never seen a county deal with that situation. So when you sit there and say, you know, when a county builds a building that's half and half, how do you guys do that? And they're gonna go, we don't know what you're talking about, because we've never seen that done before. So you go, okay, we're number one.
No, this is more akin to when you find somebody embezzling funds out of the county treasury, what do you do to them? It's more akin to that, because that's what happened here. They obligated the county to money they couldn't obligate the county to. This is flat out, this is easy to determine, and it will be determined. Let's just deal with what we can deal with and quit looking for pie in the sky, because
Yeah.
we'll go down the path and we won't get anywhere. We see the path it's going. DES has told us the path it's going. They're not giving us any money to speak of.
Right. But they're giving you some, which makes no sense, how some can qualify and some doesn't. That's kind of, that one seems quirky in my side.
No, it doesn't. If you look at how it was sent in, there are some dollars that were paid for by Griggs County. And those are the ones they're approving, I would imagine. We haven't seen that yet, but I would imagine that's the case. And we saw the first set of of reimbursement requests, and I'm sure that's what happened. Well, yeah, this one qualified because Griggs County paid for all of it, and it had to do with the EOC center.
But you know, you did write some checks out. The county has written checks out to craft, and the county has written checks on construction. Not all of them. There's been checks written.
Reimburse.
And like I said, that's where I said this is a path where they want to be a little, you know, and this area, just like when you talk about that, there has been no identification of even what it costs the EOC is right now. If somebody said to you, how much did each piece cost? You don't know, because you got two big glob bills, one from the architects, one from the construction people.
I thought they separated those.
They're separated.
Well, they are, but again, the separation is the point where you can argue back and forth.
Yeah, they're not on contract separated.
Yeah, correct.
Right.
So, I mean, they made here's what we see as our cost, and you could go, well, we disagree with you. And they're going, hey, we don't care as long as the writes a check. And because right now, construction here doesn't care whose name's on the check, right? I mean, if the building authority says, hey, we'll write you $700,000 check, they go, hey, we're good with it. We don't care who writes it. And they don't. So, from their perspective, they're saying, this is the building. And it's your building. And their money. That's
Not a
their-
building.
And they're,
It's not our building.
I know, but in their eyes, they're going, hey, we're gonna save your building.
Their beef is with the building authority, and that's what will eventually come down.
Oh, they sue both you, right?
Yep, they will. But we have a
They
contract
haven't
with the
sued
building.
anybody.
They-
All the letter said is they're gonna file a mechanics.
Yeah,
That was it, okay, that was it. Okay.
but they gave us 10 days to respond. So you tell me what you think that means.
Oh, yeah, you know what I mean. Could give you 1 day instead, right? Let's get it done with.
So
Yeah, no, I mean, that's, there is, they could, and from the perspective of should you count on this never being a problem, I would never do that. But for the same token, is there a reasonable? You know, you could make a case, and, you know, Jamie could go to court for you guys and sue on different things, and some things you might win on, and get to a jury or whatever. And you could sue DES. They might win, you never know, I don't know. I mean, if, again, in the goofy world you're in right now, there might be some loophole that all of a sudden on come contract that you find. I mean, it's just like when you talk about UCC deal. I mean, in theory, is you can amend the lease agreement and ask them to take it out. Now, I don't know if bondholder right mind they want to do that, but in theory, you could ask them. I mean, you could amend the lease agreement.
We wrote the building authority a letter and asked them to meet and discuss changing the lease agreement to reflect the different ownership in the project, and they haven't responded.
Okay. Yeah.
And that was quite a while ago that letter went out.
Yeah, I don't think there's a smooth spot that's at.
You know, with that said, if we don't do that, all that grant money can come into the county, and there's no way for us to get it to the project legally. That was my original question.
and there isn't. But
I mean, you'd have to go back to DES and say, is there a way we can change our contract with you so we can do it? That's what you'd have to do.
no, our contract's not with DES. Our contract is with FEMA and Homeland Security.
For Homeland Security.
DES is
Right, I'm sorry.
they're just the administrator of it.
You definitely that. So when I say DES, I mean Homeland Security. If you could go to Homeland Security and say, would you amend our grant? And they'll come back with a judge after that ruling saying you can't commingle funds and you can't have a non-for-profit.
Right, but it seems to me like it would be easier to change the lease agreement and the security agreement that's Bank of North Dakota than to change the covenants of the grant, which is a federal.
Oh, yeah,
I mean, come on, that's.
The situation is going to dictate which direction we go here. And we're just going to have to do a reaction.
But if the whole grant doesn't come in, we might as well give it back to them anyway, because the covenants of that grant is so restrictive. It's going to cost the county hundreds of thousands of dollars to adhere to the grant.
Well, we don't know that yet. Bob's working on whether or not we can tear down the courthouse. Correct, Bob?
Yep.
Okay.
But tearing down the courthouse will cost
Yeah,
hundreds
right.
of thousands of dollars.
I know. Well, one hurdle at a time here.
I mean, I suppose the theory is you could give the building to the building authority and they could rent it to you. And of course, the rent would be pretty exorbitant, I guess.
What building's that? What building's that?
This one over here.
They already own it.
They already own it.
No, I mean, but if you said you want to move into it, you always rent.
They already own it.
No, but if they said if you guys want to move there, you can move in with gladly add you they can.
We're already paying rent.
We are paying it.
I mean, but they could raise the rent. They were now our rent. We're gonna break that and we're gonna raise it.
Well, how would they break that without
Well, I'm just
our?
saying
Now we're really getting out of what if.
That's what I'm saying is, you know,
What if a white elephant shows up? We can sell him to the circus and retire.
when the stinkle-meter kind of works, how bad could it get?
Well, let's quit that line of discussion. We're not going anywhere.
I mean, you're gonna be thinking about that.
And you're making things kind of silly.
We have one more.
You have one more question you need to ask
Yeah.
Harold. You wanted to talk to about amending budgets and what process you're gonna do?
I think the only point, and this is kind of, comes back, and that's why I came early, because I didn't want to listen to this process. I'm really glad I did, because, you know, you made the perfect point saying is, you made it in January, all this is a paper entry, because you did not find a way to make any corrections or fund any deficits. You just said, we'll make it equal. So by rights, you said, we don't know how to pay for it, we'll let you do it. And that's why I brought up kind of Barnes County, because they do it line item by line item, and they would spend half hour to an hour of every meeting having different department heads come in and ask them in their budget. And they would do it. But see, what they did was they took every budget and they cut it down to the bone and said, so you're gonna go on a travel trip, Bob? No, you're not. Your travel budget's zero. You wanna travel? You come to the next meeting and we'll amend your budget so you can do that. They literally had no fat. They're probably, you got a little bit of bone. But every meeting, there was at least 2 departments that was amending their budgets. And that is a phenomenal control system if you're willing to do that. Now, you can start talking about it in more smaller increments. So instead of doing annually, do an annual budget, but you say, okay, semi-annual. So July 1 comes, we want to have a serious talk with every one of you. And if you're telling me you're on and you're not going to overspend, then I'm going to hold you to that. But this is your time to come clean and go, whoa, I missed a couple things. Do you want to amend my budget? You can even go quarterly if you wanted to. Say, okay, on a quarterly basis, tell me what you're going to do. You can have them even prepare the budget monthly or quarterly or semi. No, I'm not a big fan of that because then everybody is, well, I thought I was going to spend it in January, I'll probably spend it in February. Oh, guess I'll spend it in March. And then every budget you become, I don't know where you're at then. I mean, these are the kind of things where if you truly want to manage the budget, but this is the part where the commission goes back and saying is, those 3 things are still what you're going to look at. Every time you're over budget, there's only 3 ways you're going to ever address it. Fiscally, if you want to stay in the same spot. Cut another expense, use the additional money that came in that you didn't expect, or go back to that little minuscule reserve you have and say we're willing to deficit spend.
Yeah.
Right now, in theory, when you amend the budget, you were in theory saying we're going to deficit spend.
No,
But if you amended in January, because like what?
no, we didn't amend the budget. That's incorrect. We moved funds from one line item to another line item. We took funds out of, within the general fund,
Right.
and we moved it to the courthouse and grounds. Now we're using that courthouse and grounds because we couldn't create a reserve fund. Basically, that courthouse and grounds fund has become a reserve fund for the general budget. So when we are faced with something over budget, we go take it out of the courthouse and grounds fund and move it to the budget line item that's over. So that we are doing basically operating with a reserve, but we didn't have the ability to change the budget because we came in mid-scope.
Right. No, what I'm saying is, if you remember
If you
when
did
Cindy
that,
came in
that's what
January.
you'd be agreeing to do. He didn't say that's what we
Yeah.
were doing.
No, what you're doing, you're managing that. But
Yeah.
what I'm saying is, and what Troy talked about, he said in January, Cindy comes and says, okay, we gotta amend all these budgets. Or we'll go back to this flood 211, because that's a perfect example. You're saying, okay, if I overspend, and my only option is to amend the budget so I don't overspend, that's not a management tool. No, what you're talking about is something totally different. What you're talking about, I like what you did, because from the perspective of saying is, you need to identify if that reserve is there or not. So again, last time I talked, you said that you, basically the commitments you saw in the general fund were more than they even had. So if you actually put all those things in, not only do you not have 130, you got negative whatever. And these kind of things where, as a budget, if you are going to manage that way, then you are going to be dealing with it quite a bit. And like what you asked for, to say, tell me if a line is over budget. And I think that's great that you asked that, because then you start saying, it's okay, how am I going to deal with it? Am I going to just talk about going, shame on you? Okay, that's your real bad. Well, then you don't have a budget.
Right. But
And that's a part where the consequence issue, if you want to say that, what do you want to give up then for that? Do I see you get another line item? Or you go, well, guess what? As a commission, if you don't have anything to cut, we'll go back to Jill's budget. She said you didn't have it. She said, I cut that bone and whatever. So I got to go 2% over. You're going, well, then I got to pick somebody who's not only going to lose 10%, they might lose 20%.
Yeah.
But that's the parts where, when you amend budgets, you can spend every meeting, you can just put item B, budget amendments, and deal with it. And have Cindy come back, and then like what you say from Bob, if Bob's going over budget, you go, Bob, if you're not going to be there, send me a little email telling me what you're planning on doing to fix this. If your gas budget's going over, or your bed, or you're gonna, if your supply's going over, or you're going to cut your gas by saying, I'm going to do less patrolling, so therefore we're going to do 2 hours less, we're going to park the car, or whatever. But some way and then you can say, I don't like that answer. What else you got to offer? But that's the parts where, all those things can work, but the first time you let somebody get a pass, then it stops working.
And at the end of the year, what we'll do is we'll take the budgets that are over hopefully we'll have had discussions before that, and then we will use this small reserve fund to replenish the amount of overage so that the budget's balanced. So we only have to amend them hopefully one time at the end of the year. It would be the most feasible way to do that, but we have to be able to keep track so that all of a sudden it doesn't come to the last week in January and all of a sudden we realize the budget's way over. So it takes cooperation with each department head on an ongoing basis, and it's nothing more than, okay, the general is over now $100,000, we've got 150 here. We got to look out here, guys, because we got 2 months left to go. It's nothing more than keeping track on a piece of paper. Till we get to the end to amend it, we just have to make sure that we have enough in the reserve to make the amendments.
And then the other thing you look at is, and we'll use that vehicle perfect for weed control. Because I mean, actually, that did end up happening in Barnes County where it got to be December and the fund had some money, says, hey, you mind if I buy the pickup in December rather than January because they agreed to budget for January. You go, okay, well, that's all right. If you want to do that, then also the next step is you cut next year's budget for equipment for the 20,000 so he doesn't buy, oh, there's another 20,000 next year. Right. I mean, but as a commission, as you look at stuff, the budget should reflect every action you take. You should not be driven by the budget, you should drive the budget. So if you say, here's what we as a commission believes is important to do.
Every anticipated action.
Then if you say, we want to be open over noon hour because people need to come in and do business over noon hour. Well, then you might have to increase salaries in departments so people can be open. Or you're going to have to sit there and stagger hours, you know, or whatever reason. But if you sit there and say, we're going to provide, just like when Dale's talking about was more services and less taxes, you go, hey, I like the more service part, and then everybody stays open forever. We had a new person that can float around to help out everybody as needed. You go, yeah, we can spend the money, but if you as a commission say, we are not going to make sure we provide all these services first, then then you have to follow by saying, okay, here's how we're going to be able to manage each department's budget, or department's people. You got to stop doing stuff. There's going to be some stuff you're going to say, okay, you get on our waiting list. You make a request, we'll take your request, and as we have time, we will honor that request. Rather than, you know, a guy walks in and says, Cindy, I want this stuff and I want it. Yeah. And she goes, okay, I'll give it to you now. Well, what happens then? She's working till 7 o'clock at night on this other stuff. That if she'd have told all those guys, you know what, come to me next week and I got more time to deal with. But those become philosophy-driven budget items. And that's what I'm saying too many times as an accountant. I think that budget makes too many times a decision that you don't want to make. Because they go, oh, budget's not budgeted, or it is budgeted, and you go, but we don't want to do it. Then the budget should show that. Or the budget should always show what you guys want to see happen for county services. Period. And always remember that, because you know, if you're given a chance, or when you cut all these people loose with the budgets, I mean, if they, you know, that's the thing. And I probably should have said that when they're still here, but you know, the other problem with budget philosophy is they come in with the Cadillac every time. So their first budget can be like, oh, we'll never get it, so they're going to cut it. So what I'm going to do is, if I want $100,000, I'm going to budget for $200,000. Oh, you cut me in half. Oh, okay, I'll take $100,000. And but you guys beat me, you know. And I've seen it happen in a lot too. So that's a part where, again, when you talk about stuff, and that's why, you know, you're going to have to deal with as a commission to say, we're going to prioritize as a commission, and how you fit in that priority is how it's going to work.
That's why it has to be a line item budget.
Yeah. And also it has to be real rationally based. I mean, because if you talk about, overtime's a great one. Where if you talk about a person, if you give them a chance, they're going to budget a ton of overtime. Oh, we're going to have a lot of overtime. You know, and if you say no, you're not, and you better talk to us about it. You budget zero, and you spend $1. Guess what? You come to the next meeting. We're going to talk about how you manage your staff to make sure it stops. I tell you, every time I see people go, you stop playing overtime. Okay, next month overtime. Stop it. All right. Next month, still more. And that's the things that you're going to have as a commission to face is. And whether you do budget amendments or you just say we're watching this and we're going to make sure when we get a feel for it how it's going to go. Because if somebody's over right now, and we'll use Connie and Cindy as 2 examples, if all of a sudden you go, okay, if Cindy's going over budget, but Connie's under budget, you know she's under budget, so in your mind you're like, yeah, we can pay for that. Cindy's from here or vice versa. But if you say, no, that's when you talk about amending the budget. You say, if I'm gonna amend that budget just up for one, and not down for everybody else, now all of a sudden you're saying, would you agree to deficit spend? Yeah. But the key is, the whole thing of the whole budget process is how you wanna manage, and then you follow through. Because I've seen a lot of people who get really fired up, and then you bog them down with details, and you go, wow, I didn't think it was this much work. I don't want to do that. Can't we do that? Just do a budget and we'll see how things go, kind of thing. And you go, really? And you know what? Well, when you're flush with cash, you're like, Bart's gone. Hey, we can spend some extra money, and we just go, shucks, we spent some more money with us. Yeah. But you guys are in a tight budget. You really are. I mean, when you say that, you are not exaggerating.
Prosperous government, poor citizens. That's
But
okay.
as you get involved, I mean, I think you guys are on a great start.
Thank you, Harold.
Thank
Yep.
you.
All right. Come back.
See you, Harold.
See you later.
That's a lot. Are we ready?
Yeah, I'm not sure what you said.
You put a silver collar in there or what?
I don't know.
Ready?
You're not gonna talk in circles
No,
like
I'm
that.
not. That radar bill we had, that meeting, I asked to take that back.
Yeah.
That general DS grant expenses, that's simply a grant in and out expense account. And that's what Connie and we talked about using that to pay for that radar on that grant money we got. And that's why it was marked under the DES grant expenses. It's an in and out.
So you're being reimbursed for that 100%?
No, there's the part that wasn't on a grant, or the part that's listed as DS grant expenses, that's the in and out part. That's the money that we're getting from the state. That's the 75% match from the state. The other 2 line items on that bill were from my budget for the local match.
Oh, they were? Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it's...
They came out of the sheriff's budget.
Yep. So the only part of that DS, that was just an in and out fund. That's where it wouldn't have a negative impact on the budget.
So we didn't pay that?
No, I took it back to get a clarification because I wasn't sure how it dropped that way that day.
It wasn't in today's vouchers?
No.
Okay, so we need to approve that.
Yeah. I don't know. Oh, before we start, as long as Bob here, I have a correction. Bob does not use QuickBooks.
No. I don't use any kind of software for business of any type. So a grade school level
So
so I can keep track.
once again, I misspoke.
That's all right.
So
We got that figured out.
Okay.
Okay. You guys want to take action on this invoice? For $2,002.
So once it's paid, then we present the check as proof of payment, and we're reimbursed.
We've already got the money.
Oh,
The money, that's why that DS counter, the money's already been put in there. It's been received and everything. It's there.
It'll zero out the $1,500
Yes.
out of the DES account, and then the $251 will come out of 2 different accounts within the sheriff's budget.
1,500 came in, it was deposited, 1,500 going out to pay the bill.
$2,002 going out to pay the bill.
Correct.
Of
Yes.
which 502 of it will come out of the sheriff's budget.
Correct.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve the bill for the radar.
Sean has moved that we approve the warrant for the radar. Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second.
Seconded by Dale. Is there any discussion? Is there any discussion? Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. John?
Aye.
Dale?
Aye.
Ron?
Aye.
Sean?
Aye.
Troy votes aye. Motion carries. Who wants this? Okay, the next thing we have, is on page 24. It's payroll, and I believe that is on the agenda because that overtime account has gone over the budget.
Yep, I got a hand up here.
And Bob was gonna explain that to us.
The ones are Jamie and Sam there too. And they got drunk, or each with it. That's for Cindy. I guess I'll start at the top there. For 2014, I budgeted $9,000 overtime. That was based on my previous year's needs. In the past commission, since I've been sheriff, and I'm pretty sure when Henderson was here, any overtime grants that we ever got were not put into the overtime budget. It was done as an in and out type thing. According, to how you guys feel about this, that's not correct. I agree with that. I have no issue with increasing those budget. This one was not done. Number 3, when you guys made the comp time change, you mandated I pay that overtime. And where that hit me hard, that instant was on the holiday comp pay. I have 3 deputies. One of them works the holiday, and the other 2 were given 8 hours of comp time. The county, back when Charlie Stock was here, they asked him to research that. That being the case, the 2 deputies that are not working, or the 1 deputy, whatever I have for staff, they're entitled to holiday compensation because it's their day off. They're not receiving a benefit from the time off that the courthouse employees would have. So everybody here works Monday through Friday. If holiday falls, my staff is they're either working or it's their day off. So they have to be compensated for that. And so that, I used to give them 8 hours comp time. I'd make them burn it up in the next pay period, 2 pay periods. Now I have to pay them cash. And that, I took a $2,600 hit on that decision. And I made that clear at that time that was going to interrupt my budget. I guess just one side track from this, I would like the commission to reconsider that comp time thing for my office, because a lot of things that I had to pay overtime for this year, I normally would have given comp time for. And the question was asked me by one of the commissioners, my staff is responsible for 12 hours. They work a certain period at 12 hours. If they're called out prior or after their shift, I try to adjust their next work hours for that, no overtime. But the overtime comes up is when they're drawn in from their time off or something that I have no control over. Now, instead of giving comp time for some of those events, I had to pay overtime. That has hurt my overtime budget. And I guess the last and final thing, number 4, is the DOT grants. When we talked about this in the year, it was December or January, I told you at that time I was going to have an issue with this because the grant was awarded and I can't change my budget on my own. So here we are. So I guess I'm asking to amend the budget to cover those costs. There's no new money from the taxpayers on this, other than what would be for the overtime that I have no control over. I didn't have there's no knowledge I can head to provide for that funding in my overtime budget. I'm more than happy to address this differently in 2015. It makes total sense to me, always has.
So the grant money that is coming will cover the $5,000 of the overtime.
Okay, I have grant money coming of $9,600.
Right.
As of today, it's on the bottom. These numbers are as of yesterday. The county has paid out $6,475. I think we've gotten back like $5,000 and some change. According to the contract, we sent reimbursements in on the 31st and on the 1st. We'll get those roughly in the coming 5 to 10 days, and they're deposited right back in the treasury like everything else I do it does. And so those are not new monies that are be taxpayer dollars. That is just, it's a state program. It's an in and out. And in the past, that's all it was done.
Okay, so the sheriff's already the $9,000. will be supplemented by $9,600.
Correct.
Okay, which will give you a balance of $18,600 in that, budgeted for that account.
Okay.
And
Plus-
right now you're at $14,758. So can you make it to the end of the year on $4,000 in that account?
I'd have to work those numbers quick. No,
Okay. Okay, you had $9,000
Yep.
that was initially budgeted. You're saying that with the cost share and the grant, you get another $9,600.
Correct.
That gives us $18,600.
right to the penny.
To date, you've spent $14,700.
Correct.
So $14,700, $18,600, we can say $4,000 would be left in that budget. If we amended it, we don't have to amend it, we could just wait till the end of the year and then reimburse it. So will $4,000 get you to the end of the year on that line item budget?
Very close. My other concern on is the 2,600 of it to pay out for the holiday comp.
Okay, would $6,600
Yes.
get you to the end of the
Yes,
year?
sir.
Okay.
That would make a total overtime budget of 22,000 for this year roughly.
No, it would
20,000.
it would make it 21,200.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As of today, we won't go there. We called the works. But that's where I'm at in overtime. And I guess I'm not looking for an answer today on this other factor, but I would like you guys to reconsider the comp time thing, because that can save me considerable dollars in my overtime budget. And in the past it has, I've worked it that way. I kept close track on my comp time, make them use it within a pay period or two.
So the reason the overtime costs more money is because you had to pay overtime at double rather than a time and a half.
No, I'm just talking about the two employees that are compensated for a holiday. So the holidays Connie's got, and then any other holidays that you guys deem you give out, like if there's a Friday between the weekend and holiday, those also have to be covered as compensation time. I used to give the guys 8 hours of comp time. Now I have to pay them because you guys did away with comp time. And then I have to compensate them. That was reviewed by Charlie Stock when he was here as state attorney. Commissioners called for that. He did the research on that, and that's
So
what it is.
Right, but here's the deal.
Yeah.
If you're giving somebody comp time, somebody else is working.
No, on the holiday, one person works the holiday.
Yep,
Sign. That's it.
yeah.
I give them comp time. The person who's scheduled to work that day works it. The other two have to be compensated because it's only their day off. They're not getting a holiday off. It's just their day off.
Right.
And then during the week, if I give employee A, I tell them, you gotta take tonight off because you got comp time, then I'll work a double shift on those nights to cover that. I don't have you work comp time and then bring you in and give you overtime to cover that. I don't do that. I've never done that.
So Charlie said that in a revolving schedule type of employment, that you still had to recognize holidays. I thought that was the reason for a revolving schedule where you work 5 days and you're off so many days and 5 days and if it fell on a holiday, the holiday wasn't recognized because you were getting time off other days in that holiday to compensate for it.
The holidays are the only ones that have to be compensated. That was looked into and that was presented to the commission. I have to compensate those people because it's just their day off. There's no benefit to them by everybody else having a day off, or they don't get that. It's just their day off.
Yeah,
So they're either going to work or it's their day off. And it's only in situations like my department's in, where the courthouse, it's a non-issue unless somebody would have had to come in for some reason.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we work under the federal system, the same thing as that, and that's not the way that they treat our employees.
Well, that's just the system I'm working under, because that's what I was told to do, and that was the state attorney's, the commission thing. That was must be 2010 when they redid the vacation schedule. They did all that stuff.
So when you budget an employee's annual cost, how do you do it? You don't include the holiday pay in there?
But
When
the holiday pay is budgeted into my overtime. I take the holidays and
it shouldn't be though.
well, it has to be because the holiday pay isn't part of their salary. It's not part of their regular salary.
Yes, it is.
Troy County, because I don't know who's working the holiday. That could change every
It
holiday.
doesn't matter.
Sure it does.
No, it doesn't.
Well, I guess if you want to, but it's not regular pay, it's overtime pay over and above their regular salary.
Yep, so only the half, if you're paying double time or time and a half for that holiday, only half of that time should go to the overtime.
Yeah.
Because if you have, if you base your salary on 2,080 hours.
Yep.
So in the normal rotation, everybody's gonna work the same number of days throughout that year. They're gonna work 2,080 hours. Now, if one of those days happens to be a holiday, you've already budgeted for
Regular
base
time.
salary. You have to pay them overtime over and above that, but there's no benefits attached to it. So that number isn't time and a half, it's half.
On holidays, it's one whole extra shift, because they're paid double time on holidays. Double time. So if you make $100 a day, you make $200 a day.
Okay.
Right.
That's fine, but you should have already budgeted for the 100. So the amount that goes into the overtime budget should be the other 100,
Correct.
not the total 200.
And I'm not arguing that fact.
Oh, okay.
Not at all.
I don't know how it's been done, I'm.
Yeah. So this $2,600 you see here for that holiday compensation pay, that is straight 8-hour pay. Instead of getting 8 hours comp time, I've now had to give them 8 hours of straight pay because the comp time thing left the table. That's all I'm saying. So for every holiday, I've got 2 deputies that are not working. They're compensated for that day off under the system we're on. And that was given to me, it was ordered to the sheriff's office when in 2010 or 2009 when Charlie Stock was here. It's been done that way since. That's how it was mandated, it had to be. So I use comp time for that now. When the comp time left, I pay. And I just assume go back to comp time.
Would it be unheard of to question a Charlie Stock decision?
No.
I can do some research on it.
And where the issue came from is everyone here's a county employee. Okay, the ones that work in the courthouse, holiday comes up, they get a day off. They're compensated 8 hours. They go home and do whatever they want to do with shopping. On the rotating schedule, those people do not get that time off. It's just their day off. And so that's where it came from. Now that's the system we're under here. If we're going to change that in 2015, that's that. We can talk what is and if, but this is what I was dealt with to work under, so that's what I had to work under. These are not all my decisions. These are decisions that were handed to me in policy.
You guys gonna have to explain to him how you want his blood budgets and stuff, or permits, or any of those.
Is that today or is that for a different time?
Well, I mean, I think it's just, he just needs to identify his revenues. I mean, and they have no bearing on what you spend. Here's what you're gonna have to, here's your expenses, here's the revenue side, we take the revenue side, make it part of the general budget.
Correct.
I think
I made that pretty clear, I think.
Yeah.
The only revenues that I am concerned about are the ones that are grant revenues. And I understand until 2015, we're gonna budget for those. And I'm good with that. Up until now, this is the system I've been under. This is it. As far as the sheriff's office revenues go, they're so damn minimal that, and they change every month, they go from $50 to $100. That's the only revenue I have in my office.
Right.
There's no revenue.
And you understand, of course, that if you budget for $1,000 in revenues and you actually take in $2,000 in revenues, that extra $1,000 doesn't become money to be spent.
Clearly understand that.
Okay.
Flood budgets. My question on flood budgets, I'm going to ask the state or FEMA level, can we include them in one budget item and line item out by flood? I mean, I've got budgets upon budgets that don't make sense. It's just money sitting there.
They probably will tell you no.
Because some of
Unless they
it,
come and audit, they only
yeah,
audit
some of it
it.
there's been no revenue in it since the final payment was made to Griggs County for that flood. There's been no other revenue to it. They just sit there.
But there's a balance to it.
There are balances to this.
Right.
And some of that money, the county may be able to assess that money or get their hands on that money for equipment. We need to make that request.
But I mean, they have, whether right or wrong, there have been old flood budgets rolled into new flood budgets. 2003 and 4 were rolled in 2009. So whether that was done correctly or not, that has been done.
I believe that was okay.
Yeah.
I'll have to look into that.
Yeah, but I don't know either. All I know is that in going through some of the old budgets and meetings of the county commission that they were rolled together.
And how those budgets work, they come up with a damage assessment, FEMA comes out and they go through that, they authorize that, and let's just say, for this event, it's a $500,000 damage assessment. They go through PWs, they go through all the work, and Griggs County has deposited X number of dollars. When the work's done, any savings done, or for whatever reason, there's been savings done by the township for the county, that excess money is eligible to the county. We have to ask for it and justify it. So if there's things you want to try and do with that in 2015, let's do it. Let's get rid of the budgets and be done with them.
Like I said, all I know is that they have been combined. The balances have been combined. So the true balance of the 2009 flood budget is not the true money allocated to that budget originally. It is a combination of two other funds brought into it. And I don't recall the amounts. That's just from. And that would be the ideal way to do it if that's the way we can do it. So we only had one flood.
One flood.
And it just kept going forward as one budget item. But I don't know if that's correct to do.
And if there's funding there that the state will authorize you guys to use on equipment for the road department, that's traditionally where it's been used, is on the road department or some infrastructure thing that's been affected by flood.
Yeah.
And that would be a good place to use money, instead of having it sit in the budget.
Yeah.
Or any budget.
Yeah.
So I guess
So I guess the one question I got to ask then, Bob, that we originally, it was my intent to reduce the third deputy to half-time.
Yeah.
And then in negotiations with you, we decided that was too structured, that you agreed that by the year end of 2014, you would reduce your budget by that amount, $17,400 some odd dollars.
Right.
And and you gave us your word that you would do your best to be able to get that done. Is that still the case?
that is still the case.
Okay.
As I sit here today, I have enough money in my budget if you allow me to transfer between line items to take care of a deputy spot through the end of August. And that is my plan, and I want to do that for several reasons. There's some things that work within my office. We've got the cops grant on the table. We should have notification of that by the end of that date. And before the end of the month, before the end of August, I'll be able to give you my final, and if we're not going forward, then it'll end right there.
But you're not indicating that approval of the cops grant would make a difference on this year's budget.
No. Well,
It would be for 2000.
actually, it would. If we got the cops grant and you guys chose to go forward with that, that's a decision you're going to be making. That's not my decision.
Mhm.
The decision you're making either on your own, or if you want to do something with Steele County, that's going to happen at that time. That cops money can go into play roughly upon receiving it.
Yeah,
Because we're in a position where we were going to alleviate a deputy position, so that cops grant was applied for on the purpose of we were going to reduce. Now, if you guys choose to use that on the first of the year, or you want to start something after August 31st or 30th, whatever it is, that's the decision you make, and you'll have all the information available I have for you on that. So that'll be the decision.
in my view, bringing that cops grant in to offset what was going to be a cut really wasn't the intent of the cut. I think the cops grant would play out very well for 2015. If we knew we had the grant, we could then offset the price of one deputy by half.
Correct.
But, I mean, you agreed to the $17,400 cut. I think that needs to be followed through with without receiving any extra funds, if that's possible to do that.
And that is possible. It's just a matter of, do you want to let the deputy go and then hire one back in January if there's a cops grant? Because we will not be able to use that money for existing staff, because that was clearly not asked for that way. And they don't really allow you to have money just to, that would be supplementing our budget.
Well, I guess, what was your intent when you agreed to the original agreement back in the first of the year, when you agreed to cut it by $17,000? What was your intent? And that's kind of what I think I need to base this on. And I don't need to know, but I mean, your intent was to
Well, I think we can talk about that very quickly here.
Yeah.
the intent was there, and I asked the question, and I was told, well, no, we're not saying that, but, okay. At the same time, we've talked a few times after about sharing deputies Steele County and some of those things. And even more recently, approvals given to apply for the COPS grant. Okay, so that, I assumed I wouldn't be able to take anyone past July 31st. But I do have enough funding to carry one through August. And then for numerous reasons, that would benefit my office for the month of August greatly. There's a lot of things we're putting in place before all this unfolded, and I needed. So by the end of August, we'll have the final.
So we would then be asked to look at this as a unexpected windfall and apply it towards the sheriff's department, basically. Right, yeah, an unexpected.
Well, yeah, this did. And then if we were going to use the COPS grant, we would either hire one on our own, or we would hire or join into a joint thing with Steele County and hire one, split it. That's what it'd be.
But in the eventuality we don't receive the COPS grant, will you still be able to cut the budget by the $17,000?
Yes, I will.
Okay.
And if you choose to not take the COPS grant, there's no penalty or anything else that's going to bind you to anything.
Yeah.
So back to my thing from before you, I'm asking if you would either amend or however you want to handle this. I'd like to take the 9,600 and the 2,600 and increase that budget, or allow me to spend that, because that money was there and I had no control over that money. I mean, I know at the time that we talked about this in December, I made it very clear that we were going to have the same problem in 2014. It's in the minutes, it's in the recordings. And how you guys want to remedy that, I'm open to anything. The deputies work that money, we've got the reimbursement coming for that. We have every reimbursement has come in like clockwork, like it has the last 3-4 years. We've done this. And I said the only difference is the 2,600 with the holiday comp pay.
So that would take that budget from 9,000 to 21,200, of which that 2,600 would actually be additional funds.
Right, correct. You know, basically, from just a simple way of saying this, that was a mandate that wasn't funded for me. You know, I didn't know that was coming when I come up with my $9,000 overtime budget.
No, that's true. Your budget was set before the policy.
Yeah, way before.
Time policy.
And that's all I'm saying. If we can just justify those two things, then we're set. Because I'm not over on anything else in my budgets. I'm not going to be. There will be no overage on my budget. That's the only I'm over now, and that's the only I'm going to be over.
Okay.
I have one more thing to say about budgets. Regional corrections, there's a line item in there called alcohol monitoring that shows a negative balance. That's the 24/7 funds, those things that we deal with in that 24/7 alcohol monitoring. That's not general fund dollars. It's got to be kept separate. It's an in and out thing for the 24/7 program.
It's 100% refundable or 100% reimbursement?
Well, what it is, it's when people take their 24 test, they pay $2 a day. That money gets compiled, and then that money goes out and buys tubes, buys equipment for the 24/7 program. And that money can be used for equipment for law enforcement purposes, no matter what it is. And that stuff would be, you know, I'd bring that to you and say, this is what we want to do with this. But that money, by the AG's office, that's not general fund dollars. It's part of that program. It's kept in a fund for itself.
But once it's over, it's part of the general fund budget.
Once it's what?
Once you overspent it, it's part of the
It's never
general
been
fund
overspent. It'll never be overspent.
Okay.
It just shows a negative. I don't know why that is. That I don't do that part of the book. But it's not overspent. It never will be.
Okay. That's all the questions I had. So to summarize, then, you would say that the overtime budget or the salary budget is going to be $2,600 over at the end of the year.
The what?
The salary budget, the overtime budget, we have it listed as
9,000.
It's gonna be over by
So it'll be-
12,500, 11,500.
Let me rephrase,
Unless
underfunded by $2,600
Yes.
If we amend it,
if we amend it.
because the reimbursements right now are going to the general fund.
Yes, yeah.
Yep.
And you expect to, even without the COPS grant, you expect to be able to hold to the $17,000 adjustment that we made to your budget.
That'll be remedied.
So the question is, do we need to amend this now, or do we trust Bob to keep us appraised of how this is moving forward? Knowing that that money will be in the general fund, the $9,600, and we can amend it. That way we'd amend it once, otherwise we'd have to amend it twice. Right. Now and then. I'm in favor of working with Bob and see how this works out again. Maybe we got off on the wrong foot the first time.
One other thing I'll add about this 9,600, depending what transpires by the end of August, I may not be able to use up that balance of that overtime. I may not have the manpower to use that, you know, so it's gonna be that or less. It will not be over the 9,600, that's impossible, because they're not gonna pay us any more than 9,600.
What do you think?
Well, I think right now, I think we roll for a while, and we can always make that decision later. Yes,
Is
Ben?
he gonna have to bring them to you every time then? That's what'd be nice about making a motion, then you don't have to bring it
Yeah,
back.
I mean,
every
and
time.
I'm open to whatever, if you wanna see him every week or every 2 weeks or whatever it takes, it doesn't matter to me, it's just business, this is business, impersonal.
What's that?
It's a
It's a line item that's over.
it's on
Oh,
page
gotcha.
24.
Yeah, when we do the overtime, it's all listed on a separate voucher with my payroll, and it's identifying what kind of overtime it is, and this is what this is about. I definitely that worked overtime, and that was withheld, and of course they weren't happy, but
Well, I mean, do we need to put it in writing, or do we need to make it that strict, Bob, or can you hold to the provisions?
I'll hold the line, that decision, your guys, whatever you wanna do, I will do. I just need to get this remedy, and I think everybody wants to get out of here.
Can I bring up one other point?
Yep.
I'd like to see that anything in general that you make a motion on it, so you can change the line budget, because you have such a big carryover. And since you have that big carryover that you put off to the side, the only thing we amend in the general is the general.
Lost me.
Okay, the general is considered one fund.
Yes.
So his budget can be over and somebody else's isn't over, and so your bottom line is not over.
Right.
So when we amend the general, we amend just the general total. Okay, so what will happen is if you don't amend, if I'm thinking this
I don't
maybe
think the
wrong.
total should change. If we move $9,000 out of the buildings and grounds or wherever we put that
It
money
won't change.
and put it into his overtime, the bottom line's not gonna change.
The general can't change.
No, that's why we did what we did, is because we couldn't change we can't affect the tax levy after the tax levies have been spent. So all you can do is move money around within the fund. So as long as we adhere to line item budgeting, meaning that if any line goes over, we're notified of it, we're fine. Because then we have the ability to move it from another line to this line.
Right.
And that won't allow the general to go over then, as long as we keep a running total of how far we're over.
Right, but then you won't amend it at the end of the year, is what I'm also trying to tell you.
We
The
will amend
general-
it, we will amend it at the end of the year,
If needed.
if needed.
Only if needed.
Yeah, but we'll have to keep a running total. It can be nothing more than a sheet of paper saying, okay, the sheriff's over 2,000, and now the county commission's over 4, and over here we've got 150,000 to work for. And when those two numbers start getting close, we need to start making some changes. That would be the simplistic way to do it. The more harder way to do it would be every time amend the budget and move it around. But I think the way to do it is when we set up the new budget, instead of calling it courthouse and grounds, I think we call it reserve like it's supposed to be. And then we have control over that as a county commission to move that anywhere within the general fund.
Okay, what note are you giving me to follow on his then?
Just I think throughout every budget, I think we need to know over on the line, we need to be notified.
But then I'll be coming to you each month with them.
It's fine.
That's fine.
Okay. That's what he needs to know too.
So, my question is that when Deputy A works overtime, and it would be on this times payroll, if your meeting doesn't fall within that, framework where you can look at that voucher.
Mhm.
That's gonna be put off till next pay period then, is that what I mean, I just wanna know, cause I'm gonna get hit with it right away.
Well, it'll have to get paid, I would imagine, but I mean, if it's flagrant abuse, then.
Well, and it won't be, the overtime will simply be for what we've got
I
here.
mean, unless you're gonna
It
pay
just-
somebody, unless you're gonna pay somebody $9,600 of overtime, we should have some time to, in one check, we should have some time to see which direction.
Oh,
we're
you're,
going.
okay.
No, there's.
Can I put it
this-
in a different way?
If you're looking at, this thing is $957. The question is, do you want to deal with these after the fact,
Individually.
or do you want to amend the budget today? Simple question.
It'd be easier if you amended is what I'm trying to also say. I'm not trying to be mean. Because they should get paid right after you okay that. What that does is we have to go back in, do a payroll, write a check instead of deposit it because it's too much work. Deposit money into Social Security, keep track of that so when we do our quarterly reports that we have that too if we pay that right off the bat. Otherwise it should be paid on, he won't get the check until the 16th. Okay, and he should have gotten it on the 30th, so he's gonna be waiting how many days before he gets it?
I got a simpler version of that. My question is, we get paid basically the first, or the last day in the middle of the month, okay? My question is, when my deputy works that overtime, I'm assuming you gotta keep up with your 2 monthly meetings, 2 meetings a month. So I just want to tell them, is it going to get paid on that payroll or the next? That mean, are you guys gonna look at each voucher and say, God bless this, and let's just pay it out, so it'll be attached to the next payroll? That's all I want.
That won't hit the middle one though.
Right, no, I'm not saying it's-
You only hit one
Yeah.
once a month
Yeah, I'm not saying.
on this.
I'm just saying, how do I just, is it gonna be put down the road a payroll or two, or will it be paid on the appropriate payroll? When I say appropriate, I mean just the one that would be tied to by time.
We're only one pay cycle behind, so pay it, then tell us what you've done each time. We'll be aware because of this, what's happened, that it's over again by X amount of dollars. We'll be able to look and see what the difference between what's budgeted and what's been spent. And if that's approaching too quickly, we'll go to Bob and say, Bob, you told us that you're not going to go over on your payroll by any more than $2,600. So we don't have to amend it before the fact. We never have. We've amended after the fact.
No, but we previously told everybody, if the budget's over, we want to approve it before it's paid. They're just asking for approval to do payroll, even if it's over budget. Now you're saying that that's okay.
Well, I was always under the assumption that if it was over, we were going to be notified about it, and then we could take corrective action. It wasn't until today or lately that I realized that we were going over and we weren't being notified. So if we're notified, if we're a week behind or 2 weeks behind, it's no big deal. If we're not notified and we're 6 months behind, it's a big deal. So it doesn't matter as long as we can track how we're going and as long as we can track to see whether or not we're going to bust our budgets.
Okay, for payroll purposes, I guess the only thing that matters to me is if the payroll, being Cindy or Sam, whoever does that, if they're gonna, when that voucher comes in from my office along with my regular payroll as one of the side vouchers, which we have that every month, at some point, are they just approved to pay, or does it gotta come back here to get approval to be paid? That's my only question. That's my only question.
I get that.
But what do you guys want to do?
He's gonna get paid, so
Right.
I think that should
I think
just
as
be
long as
paid,
we're at this-
and then we should just be kept apprised of what the situation is.
We can't deny paying him once he's done the work, so it seems useless to try to pre-approve something that's already happened.
Bring 'em.
So now that we've
Approve
talked
them.
about this, I hope we just, my hope is to avoid this for every time I have a voucher.
But keep in mind, if this gets busted,
Yeah, it won't.
I don't know what the rest of them, but I'm coming after you.
That's fine.
That's all there is to it.
That's fine.
So it's okay, emotional.
And it's,
So before I leave this room, I guess my final question is, we got the 9,600 covered, understandable now. What about the 2,600? Is that gonna be, are we gonna deal with that? Because I still have things coming up, I'm gonna have to pay overtime for it.
But it might be more than that. You know, based on what we did with comp time and moving that to overtime pay, at the end of the year, you might have spent 3,000.
Right, and
So-
I will do everything in my power to control it too,
So
but,
we might
Sounds
as
like they don't
well,
have
we
it.
might as well deal with it once instead of
Okay.
twice.
and it will not be abused.
And I don't think we should change count time for we already set policy for the whole county. I don't think.
Would we consider looking at that next year, for next year's budget? Because for me, it's a money saver for the taxpayers, because if I control that comp time, that's less money I have to pay out. And my staff is not opposed to 8 hours, and I can give it to them, and it doesn't cost the county more. I'm salaried, so if I give Justin a Wednesday night off and I work a double shift, no one's out there. It's all covered, and I know the road department has similar issues. We're the only two agencies that are like that. Everybody else is pretty sterile in their time.
I think it really depends on what Jamie finds out about whether or not we have to pay that holiday time.
And we'll just leave it in place for now the way it is.
I need to catch my secretary
Yep.
before she takes off, but I'll be back here.
And I know that came through labor department. That's what they're working on that, so.
Okay,
Okay, is that it?
So
that's all.
All right, thanks.
Thanks, Bob.
Have a good weekend.
So do we need to make a motion?
No.
to do this?
Delegate to the NCA meeting in October.
Okay, Barb Anderson was our delegate, and now I'm going to let him know we have a different delegate if you want, or Callie Vincent was the alternate at that time. So it's up to you. Connie said she'll do whichever. She volunteered, and I didn't really have a chance to talk to Kelly, so.
What's NVCCA stand for?
Well, it's when you go to that, it's not really, it's the delegate, so I have it wrong here. It's at the North Dakota County Commissioners Association meeting in October, but it's actually for the North Dakota County Association delegate. So each county has a delegate that they appoint to go to the meeting. And Barb was for 2 years. Barb is no longer here anymore. So it's up to you if you want to do a motion and still keep Kelly as as alternate. Trying to remember if Kelly even really wanted to go. She was in surgery, so I didn't get a chance to talk to her. I don't think she's still here again yet, so
Kelly?
yeah,
She
on
was
her
in-
foot or something.
she was
I can't
here
remember.
today.
Yeah, I know, she had surgery though.
Today?
Yes, she did.
Yeah, she could barely walk around.
So this is the North Dakota Association of Counties.
Meeting, but they have 2 meetings or 3 meetings all at one time. They just put it all together for that North Dakota County Commissioners Association, but you have to have a delegate. The county sends a delegate, and if you look in the budget, there is an amount in there for that delegate. And they're assigned for 2 years. So as soon as you do a motion saying either Kelly or Connie, whoever, you do a motion, one's the delegate and the other one's the alternate. And then I send him a letter because Barb is no longer here.
But wouldn't that, if it's a North Dakota County Commissioners Association, wouldn't the delegate be a county commissioner?
Is it mandatory?
I
Yeah,
don't get
it's, I know every county does it, so I don't know if it's mandatory though. I know we've always done it, so yeah, I don't know what to tell you. I'll have to call him and ask him if you want me to do that. Because it doesn't have to be done today.
Okay.
I prefer it doesn't have to be done at all.
Okay.
Website review, does anybody have anything?
We do have the infrastructure needed, so that was good news. And Travis Palm said that he could probably have his part done next week. And then High Quest will be right behind him, so it looks like it's going good on that particular part. I don't know about,
Do we have a website?
well, I don't know about, I'm just talking about the property tax division, not the other parts.
I was getting his reports out for the people, you mean, or whatever?
Yeah, didn't he meet with you, Cindy, on uploading meeting minutes, on how to upload meeting minutes, or how to upload agenda?
We found out that I didn't have a program, it doesn't like Wave, and that's how the meeting is recorded on the Wave. So I ended up spending time trying to find something that will convert Wave to digital and he said he could do it, so.
Yeah, I know he has cleaned it up quite a bit. All that gobbledygook you talked about, most of that's gone, it seems like.
Okay.
And it's down to like one page, but I know there's no meeting minutes on it.
When are they gonna go live?
Well, I don't know.
Right now, when he had us practicing on it, I could go in and type, but to download anything like digital sound or anything like that, where he's got it, it just takes too long.
Yeah, he said.
So until he gets it live, there's,
Yeah, because anybody who goes on it, you notice it's real slow, and it's always gonna be real slow until it goes live. So it'll be real difficult to click on anything while it's in demo mode.
Okay.
For the money we have budgeted for this thing, wouldn't it be cheaper to hire a full-time town crier? Or
I don't
coming down
remember
the
how
street
much-
with a megaphone reading off the.
I don't know how much we spent on it. I don't know how much we spent on it. You'd have to ask him.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
If we had lacquer, we wouldn't need my megaphone. Get it done.
I actually didn't know what they did, I just was sounding cool. Website, yeah.
Sounds like a Monty Python.
Yeah, that's what it was, that's where it came from, yeah.
Existing courthouse, bond balance, sculptures.
The bond balance is just a report that you guys had requested from Connie. And then the sculpture was an email that came from Ron.
Yeah, that was just on the back page. Jefferson Coffey called, or had called me about a week ago, or 2 weeks ago maybe, and asked if she could have those two, she said 2 sculptures that are out on the lawn. And
One was kind of a bench and the other one's a sculpture. I think they did those when the Arts Council did that little wildflower garden thing out there.
Yeah, and she just said the county hadn't paid anything for them, and she didn't think they were missing because she didn't think we appreciated them that much, but anyway.
Correct.
But anyway.
I'll tell you what, I'd rather have them sitting there in the new courthouse. So I appreciate them.
I like them rocks.
Could have had bigger ones. I move that if we have the ability to let Gretchen or the Arts Council retrieve their sculptures.
Yeah.
I don't think it was the Arts Council either, was it? Is that
Well,
what the email says?
It has the word arts in it, but
It's-
it was, and
Said the Arts Council.
North Dakota Arts Council.
Okay, she does.
I might have,
They have
well, I
artists
might
and
have written
resident
this
team
wrong,
that did.
but she said something about arts.
From Sweden.
Did you misquote me that direction?
Well, there was something about arts, and I thought it was Arts Council.
Yeah, because when she told me it wasn't Arts Council,
Well,
so if you do
maybe-
anything, do it for Gretchen because,
Maybe that's something else, arts.
yeah, I don't, yeah.
But I guess as long as she can take them, she'll give them to whoever paid for them.
Well, I move that we authorize the organization represented by Gretchen Kolke to retrieve their art sculptures.
I'll second the motion.
Good. Seconded by Sean. Is there any discussion? Is there any discussion? Any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor, say aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay. You all saw the bond balance. And as long as we're talking about the new courthouse, you all saw that letter from Zimney Foster
Concerning
concerning the balance due.
Got 5 days left.
on that,
How much of that has been certified?
709,000?
Yeah, probably.
Oh, from crap.
Probably most of it, but I'm not sure.
Well,
He certainly couldn't have certified that $126,000 propane bill.
No, I thought that was in a change order that hasn't been submitted yet.
Yeah, I don't think that's included.
I don't think that propane bill is in there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it's hard to say what's in there, because all you get is a number.
Just a big
Yeah,
number.
but I think he'll submit, if he decides to submit a change order in the future, that's when I'm gonna see that number.
Just as a statement, I believe that we as a commission, or myself anyway, I won't feel comfortable doing anything, accepting the responsibility on this project, transferring money, doing anything until either we are directed by some legal entity to do something, or directed by a vote of the people to do something. Because I think to step forward and assume responsibility here where possibly we don't have any responsibility financially, I think is subjecting the citizens to monies that quite possibly aren't their responsibility. And I do believe that we have standing to go after the building authority for this. I believe that sometime during this, we need to push that point. Someone has to stick up for the taxpayers, and if we don't, then we're conceding that what the prior commissioners did in obligating Griggs County to $2.9 million without the consent of the people, then we're agreeing that was correct, and I don't believe that's the fact. So if we put it to vote of the people and they decide that they want to pay this or do whatever they want, I'm fine with it. But as of this point, I am in the position that Griggs County has fulfilled every bit of their portion in this whole fiasco, and I don't think it's our problem.
Well, I think that is the only option, John, because we can't raise the mill levy to pay for a building we don't own. The voters would have to ask us to do that. That's not within our authority.
We can't distribute any of the grant money until we're in compliance either.
And where do we distribute it to? We can't distribute it to a private
Well, and the
entity.
distribution of that is part of being in compliance, and we will have to have somebody's blessing before we do that.
Yeah, it does the whole situation no good to speculate on pie in the sky as Harold was doing here. That's not, you can't approach this problem but anything but realistically. And the facts are the facts, and we have to deal with them as they come presented before us. We can't put things forward when we don't know if that was the only correct action now is to act upon what's happening, I think.
React. Yeah, exactly. I don't think we can be proactive with anything. I think we have to react to what's already happened.
I agree.
Because we have no idea if we act proactively, what the result will be.
And I do believe that we need to protect the taxpayers' interest in this, and their interest in this is their participation in that lease. They signed the lease, and the taxpayers have fulfilled that in good faith.
And they didn't even want to.
They didn't even want to. But they have fulfilled their side of it in good faith, and the other side hasn't. And that's the essence of any financial contract is. So I don't know where that leaves us, but I'm afraid it leaves us in a position where we just kind of adrift in the wind. I believe. That's all I have.
Any else have any news?
Well, the only thing is that report you need to take home with you. And review it, that one there. That'll come up at the next meeting, and I probably won't be here if it's on the 15th. I will be in Cedar Falls, so Sam and Connie are supposed to cover that meeting.
What's it about?
It's
they came and
called
did a
walkthroughs.
did a walkthrough of the
Yeah,
courthouse?
workers' comp, we're supposed to do a yearly walkthrough, and then
Who did the walkthrough? We did?
each individual office does a walkthrough of their office. And so you'll see things that should or maybe be changed, or doesn't mean you have to do it, but then you've been notified of these issues, is what they say. So if you preview this and then bring it up at the next meeting.
And do what?
Decide if you're gonna make any changes. Yeah, it's not on the agenda for today, so.
How come you have circuits in your office that need circuit breakers?
Whose office is that on?
That's an auditor.
Sure it's not Wayne's? This is first, I thought.
So it needs to be piled.
Oh, this is Wayne's. If you look on the back side of the sheet, this is Road.
User. Auditor needs new flooring. Aisles need to be free of obstacles.
I move we adjourn.
I'll second that.
Been moved by Sean, seconded by Ron, and we adjourn. Is there any discussion? Is there any discussion? Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Meeting adjourned at 4:40 PM. August 1st, 2014. Next regular scheduled meeting is July the 15th. August the 15th, 1 PM.
Who did?
Each
See you guys.
individual office did it.
Fire, huh?
Turned themselves in.
Why did they do that?
It's requested by workers' comp for us to do it.
Sure.
They go around.